Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tomorrow Revenge, where you can witness the power of women. Please follow us to hear today's story. The moment I stepped into Aunt Patricia's sprawling Greenwich Village townhouse, the air smelled like roasted turkey, pine-scented candles, and quiet judgment. Crystal glasses clinked in the living room where my relatives mingled, their laughter a little too bright, their eyes a little too sharp when they landed on me. "Emily, dear, you made it." Aunt Patricia floated over, a vision in taupe silk. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "We almost thought you'd be stuck at the eye office." She let the word hang, heavy with implication. The unimportant, lowly office. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, my own smile a practiced, neutral thing. I handed her a bottle of wine. A nice Cabernet, not the expensive one she'd serve, but decent. She took it like it might be contaminated. "Just set your coat anywhere," she said, already turning. "Jackson's in the den. He's just back from deployment." "Again, you remember Jackson? My son? The Navy SEAL." As if anyone could forget, Jack Morrison, the pride of the Morrison clan, decorated, heroic, living proof of Patricia's superior genetic contribution to the family. "Of course," I said. I found a quiet corner near a bookcase filled with untouched, leather-bound classics. From here I could observe. It's what I did best. Observe, assess, calculate. 10 years of looking like part of the furniture had perfected the skill. Dinner was a theatrical production. Patricia at the head, holding court. Jack sat to her right, broad-shouldered and quiet, his gaze constantly moving, assessing the room just like I was. A habit, I supposed. That didn't turn off after a mission. And then the director said to me, personally, "Patricia, without your fundraising gala, the Veterans Outreach Program would simply fold." Aunt Patricia trilled, sipping her Chardonnay. A chorus of murmurs and nods from my Uncle Richard, her husband, a sleek, anxious man who worked in government consulting, and the assorted cousins. Her eyes slid to me. "And you, Emily? Still at the Defense Department? Such steady work." "Yes, Aunt Patricia, still there." "Administrative work is so vital," she said, her tone making it clear she thought it was vital in the way dusting was vital. "All those forms. Someone has to file them. It's a very safe choice, especially after everything that happened to your parents." A sympathetic, pitying tilt of her head. The everything was a car accident 8 years ago. A tragic, random twist of fate on I-95. Case closed. I felt the old, cold knot in my stomach. "It is steady," I agreed blandly. "Not like our Jack," she announced, beaming. "Another medal pending, isn't that right, darling? Tell them about the hostage extraction in Canduz." "Well, not the details, of course." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Classified." Jack shifted, uncomfortable. "Mom, it's Thanksgiving." "Nonsense. We're family. We're proud. It's not like Emily's going to blab state secrets from her filing cabinet. Are you, dear?" She laughed, a tinkling, cruel sound. The table chuckled politely. All except Jack. His eyes, a sharp, focused blue, were on me. They'd been flicking to me all night. Not with pity, but with a growing, professional curiosity. I kept my posture relaxed, my face a polite mask. The mask of Emily Morrison, orphan, low-level GS, 9 paper pusher. "It's important work," I repeated, cutting a piece of turkey. "Supporting the mission." "Oh, the mission," Patricia sighed, as if I'd said I supported fairies. "Well, I suppose everyone finds their level. Jack, tell your cousin about BUD/S training. Maybe she'll find it motivating." "Mom." Jack's voice was low, a warning rumble. "What?" "It might inspire her to aim for something more than a pension. A secretary, honestly." The word landed like a slap. Deliberate, final, the ultimate categorization. "You are small. You are unimportant. You are less than us." The table went quiet. Even the clinking stopped. All eyes were on me, waiting for the flinch, the tears, the stammered defense. I set my fork down carefully. The silverware made no sound on the fine china. I looked at my aunt, and for a fraction of a second, I let the mask slip. Not much, just a flicker in the eyes. The dead calm that settles over a battlefield after the first artillery round lands. Patricia's smile faltered just for an instant. Then Jack spoke. His voice wasn't much above a whisper, but in the sudden quiet it carried. He wasn't looking at his mother. He was staring straight at me, his head tilted slightly, like a sniper recalculating windage on a previously unseen target. Ghost 9. The two words hung in the aromatic air, utterly alien, a non sequitur. Confused glances circled the table. Ghost 9? What's that? A video game? But Patricia saw her son's expression, the absolute, arrested intensity in it, the way his body had gone still, coiled. Not the stillness of relaxation, but the stillness of a predator recognizing another. I didn't move. I held Jack's gaze. I let him look. Let him see past the bland facade, the sensible sweater set, the woman who was just a secretary. I let him see the edges of the thing that lived beneath. Then, slowly, I picked up my water glass, took a sip. The everyday action was a dismissal, a reassertion of the mask. "I'm sorry, Jack," I said, my voice soft, polite, utterly normal. "I don't play those shooting games. They seem so violent." The tension broke. A few nervous titters. Patricia's laugh was loud, relieved. "There, you see? She doesn't even know what you're talking about, darling. Too busy with her spreadsheets. More wine, everyone." The conversation lurched back to life, a wave of sound washing over the moment, burying it. But Jack didn't look away. He'd seen it. He'd gotten his answer. The confusion in his eyes had been replaced by a dawning, staggering realization. Quickly shuttered behind a soldier's discipline. I excused myself shortly after, pleading a headache. Truth was, the encrypted phone in my inner coat pocket was vibrating with the specific, patterned buzz that meant a priority alpha alert. The world was calling. Patricia didn't get up. "Do get some rest, dear. All that typing. It must strain the eyes." The final parting shot. "Good night, Aunt Patricia. Thank you for dinner." My voice was pleasant, empty. I collected my coat. As I stepped out into the crisp November night, I heard the soft tread of boots on the stone steps behind me. "Emily." I turned. Jack stood in the pool of light from the porch, hands in his pockets. The family golden boy, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "Jack, congratulations on the medal." He ignored that. "What are you?" The question was blunt, stripped of social pretense. "I'm your cousin, the secretary." I turned to go. Bullshit. He was in front of me in 2 swift strides, not blocking my path, but forcing me to engage. Ghost 9 isn't a video game. It's a call sign, a classification, a ghost protocol. I've only heard it whispered. In briefings we're not supposed to have. In corridors at Bragg, it's a legend, a spook so deep they're not even in the system. I looked at him, a good soldier, observant, brave, and now, dangerously curious. "You have good ears, Petty Officer Morrison, but sometimes what you hear in whispers should stay there. Are you agency, some JSOC black box?" His mind was racing, trying to fit the puzzle pieces, the mousy cousin, the legendary call sign, into a picture that made sense. "Go back to your party, Jack. Your mother is waiting to be proud of you." I started walking towards the sleek, unremarkable sedan I'd rented. "It's you, isn't it?" he called after me, his voice low, urgent. The reason the intel for the Kunduz op was so flawless, the reason the exfil route appeared out of thin air when we were surrounded. They said it came from a high-side source, need to know only. Ghost 9. I stopped, my hand on the car door, the cold metal bit into my palm. I looked back at him. The street was dark, quiet. "Listen to me very carefully, Jackson, for your own safety. For the safety of every man on your team. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed. Some things, they start to know you know, and then they come for you. Go back inside. Be the hero. Let the ghost stay in the dark." I slid into the driver's seat. In the rearview mirror, I saw him standing frozen on the sidewalk, a tall, solid silhouette against the warm glow of the house, a house where I was just the disappointing secretary. I drove 3 blocks, turned into a deserted alley, and killed the engine. The silence was absolute. Then I pulled the encrypted satellite phone from my coat. The screen glowed with a single, brief message, coded and recoded. "Priority Alpha. Ashes active. Germany. Containment failed. Stand by for burning star protocol. Acknowledge. Ghost 9. I typed the authorization sequence. The phone beeped once softly. Then a voice, digitally scrambled but laced with an urgency no algorithm could fake, came through. Ghost 9, this is Watchtower Actual. Authentication, Delta Kilo 7. Authenticated, I replied, my voice different now. No softness. It was flat, clean, all business. The voice I used in the situation room, in the bunkers, in the earpieces of operators in the field. Go ahead, Watchtower. Ma'am, we have a broken arrow. Package is loose in Berlin. Hostiles are the ashes. They're moving. Local authorities are compromised. The president has authorized Burning Star. You are recalled. Immediate. Your bird is spinning up at Andrews. ETA to your location, 17 minutes. I looked at the phone's clock. 17 minutes. I looked back down the alley, towards the warm windows of my aunt's townhouse. Understood, Watchtower. Ghost 9 is wheels up in 20. Have the full brief waiting. And Watchtower. Ma'am. Scrub any logs of this line and run a deep trace on all family members in my immediate vicinity. Someone just said my name out loud. A pause. Say again, Ghost 9. My cover. It's been pinged. Contained for now, but I want to know if it resonates. Morrison Jackson, USN SEAL Team 6. Run him, and his whole damn family. On it, Andrews in 17. Welcome back to the war, General. The line went dead. General, I hadn't been called that in 6 months. Not since I'd gone deep undercover in the Pentagon's bureaucratic maze. Emily Morrison, GS, 9 Secretary. My armor, my disguise, my prison. I started the car. The engine purred. I took one last look in the mirror. No Jack, just the empty street. Happy Thanksgiving, I said to the quiet car, and pulled out into the night, towards the war. The sedan cut through the DC night like a blade. The festive lights of Georgetown blurred into streaks of color, then vanished as I crossed the bridge into Virginia. The encrypted phone lay on the passenger seat, silent now, a black slab of impending chaos. Ghost 9. Jack had said the words. He'd looked past the facade. It was a vulnerability I hadn't anticipated, a crack in a carefully constructed edifice. Annoyance, cold and sharp, cut through me. Not at Jack, at myself. Sentiment, however minuscule, was a liability. Thanksgiving, a weakness. I pushed the thought aside. Emily Morrison, the secretary, receded. In her place, Major General Emily Thorne, United States Army, Joint Special Operations Command, commanding officer of the Special Activities Division, a title that didn't exist on any public org chart, took the wheel. Andrews Air Force Base. The guard at the remote gate didn't ask for ID. He took one look at the sedan's plates, scanned my face with a handheld retinal reader that beeped once, green, and waved me through without a word. The hangar was nondescript, one among dozens, but the plane inside wasn't. A Gulfstream G550 matte black, no markings. Its engines were already whining, a high-pitched keen in the cold air. A figure in dark flight gear stood at the base of the air stairs. General. The voice belonged to Colonel Mark Stryker, Chen, my operations director. He fell into step beside me as I strode towards the jet. Briefing package is loaded. Bird is prepped for Berlin via a refueling stop in Iceland. Full combat communications. Suite is live. Status of the package? I asked, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Confirmed. Rheingold. The word was a bucket of ice water down my spine. Rheingold was the operational code name for a prototype binary nerve agent, a VX derivative, so refined it could be aerosolized and remain potent in a light breeze for 72 hours. 10 milliliters could depopulate a city block. The package was a transport case containing 2 liters. It had been en route from a U.S. Allied research facility in Switzerland to a secure destruction site in the UK. The transport had vanished 3 hours ago outside Berlin. The ashes claimed responsibility 5 minutes ago. They've provided proof of life. Chen's face was grim. He handed me a tablet. On it was a grainy, shaky video. A stainless steel case, stenciled with biohazard symbols and the serial number that matched Rheingold. A hand, gloved in black, opened the latch to show the twin internal chambers. They were empty. The agent was already loaded into dispersal devices. The video cut to a single, typed line. The rain will fall on the guilty. 48 hours. Target. Unknown. Their manifesto is a rambling mess. Anti-capitalist, anti-globalist, anti-everything. But this is a level of sophistication they've never shown. The transport was a black route. Knowledge was need to know, presidential level. Chen's meaning was clear. This wasn't just a hijacking. It was an inside job. I sank into a leather seat in the Gulfstream's cabin as the door sealed shut. The interior was Spartan. Communications consoles, secure monitors, a small planning table. The plane began to taxi. "Get me the leak assessment," I said, pulling up the full dossier on the tablet. Every person who knew the route, the timing, the payload, from the president's national security advisor down to the driver. I want their financials, their comms, their mistresses, their dental records. And I want it an hour ago. JSOC is already tearing it apart. Preliminary points to the German end. Their security detail was the last point of contact. Too obvious. The ashes are a tool. Who's holding them? My mind was already racing, cross-referencing, analyzing. This was the space I inhabited, the dark map of threats and vectors. The humiliation at Patricia's table was a distant, trivial memory, a scene from another person's life. The plane leapt into the sky. I watched the lights of DC shrink away, a glittering tapestry of power and secrets. My city, my battlefield, my parents' grave, a memory unbidden and sharp. My father's study, the smell of old books and gun oil. Colonel James Thorne, a career intelligence officer with the Defense Intelligence Agency, a quiet man with eyes that saw everything. He'd been teaching me chess. I was 12. "The most powerful piece, Emily, is not the queen," he'd said, moving his knight in an L shape to take my bishop. "It's the one they don't see coming, the one they underestimate right up until it's too late." A year later, he and my mother were dead. A multi-vehicle pileup on a rainy stretch of I-95. A tragic accident. Closed caskets. I, the orphan, went to live with my father's sister, Patricia, and her husband, Richard Morrison. Patricia, who saw me as a burden, a living reminder of her less successful brother. Richard, who was in consulting and was never home. At 16, I'd hacked the Virginia State Police database. The accident report was clean. Too clean. Witness statements were vague. The truck driver who caused the pileup had traces of a benzodiazepine in his system, but no prescription. He died of his injuries before he could be properly interviewed. At 18, on the day of my high school graduation, I visited the morgue attendant who had signed off on the toxicology report. $100 in cash bought me a moment of his guilt. "The report was amended," he'd whispered, pale. "The original showed a different compound, a paralytic. I was told to lose it. They said it was a national security matter. I enlisted the next week. Not as an officer, not as a legacy. As a private, I needed to disappear into the machine, to learn its guts. I learned languages. I learned to kill with my hands, with a rifle, with a drone's joystick from 8,000 miles away. I rose through the ranks, not through connections, but through a cold, ruthless competence. I volunteered for the missions no one wanted, the gray areas, the places where questions weren't asked. I made myself indispensable in the shadows, and I never stopped digging. The paralytic was a variant used in a CIA extraction gone wrong in Syria in 2004. The file was sealed, but I broke the seal. It led to a shell company, which led to a Defense Department procurement officer, who led to a man named Richard Morrison, my uncle, the consultant. Richard wasn't the mastermind. He was a facilitator, a fixer. He moved money, smoothed over audits, greased the wheels for defense contracts. Some of those contracts were for things that didn't exist on any budget, like the transport of certain high-value, off-the-books materials. My parents had stumbled onto one of his side deals. They'd asked the wrong questions, and they'd been erased. By the time I made colonel, I had a dossier on Richard Morrison that would send him to Leavenworth for 3 lifetimes. But I didn't want him in prison. I wanted the people he worked for, the ones who gave the order, the ones who considered a couple of DIA analysts and a truck driver acceptable collateral damage. So I went deeper. I created Ghost 9, a specter in the JSOC machine, a commander who existed only in top-secret SAPs, special access programs. My public face became the meek, unassuming Emily Morrison, who took a boring GS-9 job at the Pentagon to be close to her uncle's family. The perfect cover. From the inside, I could watch Richard. I could trace his connections. And I could wait for the moment the whole rotten network revealed itself. Raingold felt like that moment. General. Chen's voice pulled me back. He was holding his second tablet, his face pale. The leak assessment. There's an anomaly. Show me. He handed me the tablet. It displayed a flowchart of the Raingold operations security clearance tree. A single line highlighted in red branched off at a surprisingly high level. The Office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Counterproliferation. The line connected to an external, encrypted server cluster, pinged once, 12 hours before the transport moved. The access key used was a master override code, one of fewer than 10 in existence. Who does that code belong to? I asked, though part of me already knew. The cold knot in my stomach was back, colder than ever. Chin swallowed. The code is registered to the Office of Special Protocol Liaison. It's a clearinghouse for sensitive industrial partnerships. The listed director is Richard Morrison. I finished for him, my voice flat. Chin nodded, stunned. Your uncle. The system flags it as a potential familial conflict. Do you want me to? No, I cut him off sharply. You do nothing. You say nothing. This line of inquiry is now under my personal control. Classification Omega Black. It does not leave this cabin. Is that understood, Colonel? Understood, General. He was a good soldier. He saw the fire in my eyes and didn't ask questions. Richard, of course. It made a sick kind of sense. Raingold was the ultimate product. Not to sell to a rogue state that was too traceable, but to lose, to let it be used, to create a catastrophe so profound, so terrifying, that the resulting panic would open the financial floodgates for a whole new generation of bioweapon defense contracts. Contracts he and his partners would control. My parents died because they uncovered a scheme to sell outdated missiles to a militia. Raingold was the big leagues. And Patricia, in her silk dress, mocking the secretary, had no idea her husband was a mass murderer in the making. The encrypted phone on the console buzzed. Not the mission line, my personal, ultra-secure line. The number on the screen wasn't one I recognized, but the area code was Greenwich. My blood went from cold to frozen. I picked it up. Yes. Emily, it's your Aunt Patricia. Her voice was syrup over vinegar. I'm sorry to call so late, dear, but I just had the most unpleasant conversation with Jackson. I said nothing. He seems to have gotten some very strange ideas in his head after you left. About you. About your work. She laughed, a brittle sound. I assured him he was being absurd. That you're a clerical assistant, for heaven's sake. But you know how boys are, especially these military types. They see intrigue everywhere. What do you want, Aunt Patricia? My voice was calm, deadly calm. I want you to leave him alone, she snapped, the facade dropping. Whatever little fantasy you're spinning, whatever attention you're trying to get from a real hero, it ends now. He has a career, a future. He doesn't need some lonely girl with a hero complex dragging him into her delusions. Do you understand me? I looked at the tablet in my hand, at the red line connecting her husband to a weapon of mass destruction. I thought of my father's quiet eyes, my mother's laugh. I thought of the empty chessboard in his study. I understand you perfectly, Patricia, I said, my tone shifting. It was no longer Emily's polite, deferential tone. It was General Thorne's, the tone that made colonels flinch. You should be very, very careful about the conversations you have and the assumptions you make. Some secrets aren't just embarrassing. They're fatal. Tell Jackson to stand down, for his own good, and for yours. There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her shocked breath. No one talked to Patricia Morrison that way. How dare you? I ended the call. I looked at Chen. How long to Berlin? 6 hours, 37 minutes, with a stop. Get me the Director of National Intelligence on the secure link and the German Chancellor's security chief. We're implementing Operation Burning Star. Total media blackout. Shoot to kill orders for anyone near that package. And Colonel. Yes, General? I want a team ready to move on a U.S. domestic asset the moment I give the word. Highest level of discretion. The asset is considered armed and extremely dangerous, with deep political connections. Yes, ma'am. He moved to the comms console. I turned to the window. Below, the black Atlantic stretched to infinity. Somewhere ahead, a city of millions waited, unaware that death was possibly hours away. And somewhere behind me, in a comfortable townhouse, a woman who hated me was married to the man who might have unleashed it. The chessboard was set. The invisible pieces were moving, and the night they'd all underestimated was finally in play. My other phone, the Emily phone, buzzed with a text. I glanced at it. It was from Jack. Emily, I ran the name. Through channels. Got a brick wall. A brick wall with a TS/SCI/Omega clearance tag. Who the hell are you? And what does my father have to do with this? He'd been busy. He'd ignored my warning. He'd gone digging. And he'd found the first layer of the wall. And somehow, he'd already made the connection to Richard. The boy was sharper than I'd given him credit for. A dangerous liability, or a potential asset. I couldn't decide yet. I typed back a single line. Ghost, stop digging. The walls have ears, and they bite. I powered the phone off. The game was in motion, on all fronts. Location, somewhere over the North Atlantic/Berlin, Germany. The secure cabin of the Gulf Stream was a cocoon of focused chaos. Data streams scrolled across 3 large monitors. Satellite thermal images of Berlin's industrial districts. Intercepted cell phone chatter filtered for keywords. And the dossiers of every known Ashes affiliate painted a digital mosaic of the threat. I stood at the center, a conductor before a silent, deadly orchestra. The hum of the jet engines was a bass note beneath the staccato of typing and the low, tense voices of my 4-person command team. Watchtower, Ghost 9. Update on signal traffic from the target area. I said into the headset mic, my eyes fixed on a live feed from a keyhole satellite. The resolution was good enough to read license plates. We were looking for heat signatures consistent with chemical storage or unusual vehicle movements in the dead of night. Ghost 9 Watchtower. We have a spike on a known burner network. 2 pings, triangulated to the Lichtenberg district, an old pharmaceutical warehouse complex. Signal originated, terminated. No follow-on. Colonel Chen's voice was tight. It was a breadcrumb, possibly a trap. The Ash's usual MO is chaotic, symbolic strikes. This is surgical. This is professional. I turned to my signals intelligence officer, Lieutenant Cruz. Cruz cross-referenced the warehouse ownership. Last 10 years. Shell companies, foreign holdings, the works. On it, General. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, running it through Palantir now. Give me 90 seconds. The memory of my father's chess lesson was a ghost at my shoulder. The piece they don't see coming. I was that piece. Richard Morrison, sipping scotch in his study, thought his pawn, the leak, had moved undetected. He thought the game was about money, contracts, power. He didn't know the queen was already on the board, and she was playing for blood. My personal phone, the one Jack had texted, was powered off and sealed in a signal-blocking pouch. His message, "What does my father have to do with this?" was a live wire. He was close, too close. If he confronted Richard, the man was a snake. He'd eliminate the threat, even if it was his own son. Patricia's blind, social climbing devotion would be no protection. Got it. Cruz announced, warehouse is owned by a GmbH called Europa Pharmalogistic. Dissolved 2 years ago, but before that, its majority stakeholder was a holding company registered in Delaware, Mariah Ventures. The name hit me like a physical blow. Mariah Ventures. It was the primary shell company I'd spent 5 years tracing. The one that filtered money from Richard's consulting into off-book projects. The one that had paid the coroner who falsified my parents' talk screen. It was a ghost in the system, a financial phantom. Until now. Confirm the connection to the leak, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. The access key from Richard's office. Did it ping any server associated with Mariah or Europa Pharmalogistic in the last 72 hours? Shen was already on it, his face grim. Positive link, General. 12 hours before the hijacking, the master override key from Morrison's office was used to access a secure FTP server registered to Europa Pharmalogistic. The file transferred was the transport manifest for Rheingold, including the real-time GPS tracker codes. There it was, the smoking gun. Not just a leak, a sale. Richard hadn't just let the information slip. He'd deliver at it. He'd handed a weapon of mass destruction to terrorists for a price. My uncle, the man who'd given me a stiff, awkward hug at my parents' funeral. The man who'd paid for my unremarkable state college tuition, likely out of guilt. A cold, clear fury settled over me. This was no longer just about my parents. This was about Berlin, about the millions of people sleeping in their beds, unaware that their lives were a line item on Richard Morrison's balance sheet. Watchtower, this is Ghost 9. I am declaring a broken arrow, subcategory Alpha. Confirmed high-level treason with imminent WMD threat. Authentication. Thorn, Echo, Tango, Niner, Niner, 7. A heavy silence filled the cabin. A broken arrow Alpha was the highest alert, reserved for the loss or compromise of a nuclear or equivalent biological/chemical weapon. It granted the commander on scene, me, extraterritorial authority that bypassed all local laws and chains of command. It was a declaration of war on a single target. Authentication confirmed. Ghost 9, Watchtower responded. The voice now that of a 3-star general in the Pentagon War Room. Authority granted. Rules of engagement are lifted. Repeat, ROE are lifted. Your priority is the package. All secondary considerations are null. How do you want to proceed? I looked at the satellite map, the warehouse in Lichtenberg. I need a team on the ground. Silent. Fast. Delta or SEAL? Who's closest? SEAL Team 4 is doing joint exercises with the GSG-9 outside Stuttgart. They can be wheels up in 20, on site in 90 minutes. Led by Lieutenant James Holloway. Get them prepped, but they don't move until I'm on station. I'm taking command in Berlin. I began stripping off the civilian sweater I'd worn to Thanksgiving dinner. Underneath was a moisture-wicking tactical shirt. Cruz handed me a black combat vest from a locker. General, the directive is for you to command from the air or a secure location, Chin said carefully. The risk of you being on the ground with your cover. My cover is already compromised, Colonel, I said, clipping a sidearm holster to my thigh. And Richard Morrison didn't sell this information to a random terror cell. He sold it to a cutout. The ashes are the mask. I need to see who's wearing it. I need to be there to pull the thread. I met his gaze. Prep the bird for a hot insertion. And get me everything you have on the lead Ashes operative. I want a name, a face, and a psychological profile. Yes, ma'am. As the team burst into activity, I pulled Chin aside. Mark, I have a separate task. Off the books. He nodded, his expression solemn. He'd been with me since the early JSOC days. He knew about my parents. He'd helped me bury the traces of my investigations. The domestic asset, Richard Morrison. I want a 3-man surveillance team on him now. Full technical suite. I want to know if he sneezes. And I want them ready to detain him on my order. But they do not approach. He is a rat in a maze. I need to see where he runs, who he calls. Understood. I'll task the cleaners. The cleaners were a JSOC cell that didn't exist, specialists in domestic denial and capture operations. Using them was a career-ending offense, if discovered. I didn't care. And one more thing. The SEAL, Jackson Morrison, my cousin, he's poking around. I need him out of the way. Contained but safe. Can you manufacture a training op? A sudden deployment to the middle of nowhere. He needs to disappear for the next 48 hours. Chin frowned. It's possible, but it's risky. If he's as sharp as you say, he'll know it's a shunt. I'd rather he be angry and alive in a simulator in Nevada than dead in a ditch because he got too close to his father. Make it happen. Location: Naval Amphibious Base, Little Creek, Virginia. Jack Morrison stared at the screen in the secure terminal room, a cold sweat beading on his neck. The brick wall he'd hit wasn't just an access denied message. It was a black screen with white text that simply read, "Query logged. Origin traced. Stand by for debrief." He'd overstepped, badly, using a SEAL teammate's higher-level login to query the JSOC personnel database for Ghost 9 had triggered God knows what kind of alert. The Ghost protocol was a myth, a ghost story operators told in the dark, until his cousin's eyes had flickered with the cold, hard light of absolute recognition at Thanksgiving dinner. And then there was his father. After the call with his mother, who was hysterical about Emily's threats, Jack had done what he was trained to do. He'd observed. His father, Richard, had been locked in his study all evening, the sound of hushed, urgent conversation leaking through the door. Not his usual boardroom bluster. This was the tense, clipped tone of a man under pressure. Jack had gone for a run and circled back to the study window. He'd seen his father on a secure video call. He'd only caught a few words. "Berlin, clean up, the asset is contained," before his father had drawn the blinds. Berlin, where the news was quietly reporting a major police action due to a chemical spill. And Ghost 9 was a JSOC phantom, and his mousy cousin Emily was at the center of it. His personal phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Unknown. Petty Officer Morrison. Your inquiry has been noted. Stand down. This is your only warning. Watchdog. Watchdog." Another call sign he'd heard whispers of. Internal JSOC. Counterintel. The police of the shadows. He was in it now. Before he could decide what to do, his official, Navy-issued phone rang. His commanding officer. "Morrison, pack your kit. You and Red Squad are wheels up in 30. Immediate deployment. Training exercise, Blackwood Range, Nevada. Deep immersion sim. No comms. No exceptions. A van is on its way to you now." "Sir, we just got back." "And Blackwood, that's a Sears school, not a—" "The orders come from the very top, petty officer. Don't ask questions. Just move. And Morrison, leave your personal phone. This is a comms blackout op." The line went dead. Jack sat back, stunned. It was a shunt, a graceful, professional way of making him disappear. Emily. It had to be. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed. Anger warred with a dawning, chilling understanding. She was trying to protect him, which meant the danger was very, very real, and it was connected to his father. He looked at the text from Watchdog, then at the door, beyond which his father's study held its secrets. The obedient SEAL in him said to follow orders. Get in the van. Go to the desert. The son, the investigator, the man who'd seen that flicker in his cousin's eyes, said something else. He made a decision. He typed a quick text to his mother. Unexpected training. Gone for 48H. No phones. Don't worry. Love you. Then he removed the SIM card from his personal phone, crushed it, and flushed it down the latrine. He grabbed his go bag, always packed, and instead of heading to the designated muster point, he slipped out a rear exit of the barracks. He had a friend at Langley who owed him a favor, and he needed a passport, a ticket, and a weapon that couldn't be traced back to the U.S. government. Berlin. That's where the thread led. That's where he'd find answers. Location: private airfield, Tegel, Berlin. For 17 local time, the Gulf Stream touched down with a shriek of tires. Dawn was a faint bruise on the eastern horizon. A blacked-out Mercedes G-Wagon was waiting on the tarmac, engine running. I descended the stairs, the Berlin air cold and sharp with the smell of jet fuel and impending rain. I was no longer Emily. I was in full tactical gear, a helmet under my arm, my face all hard angles in the runway lights. A man in civilian clothes, but with a military bearing, stepped forward. General Thorne. I'm Miller, CIA station chief. This way. The team is marshalling at a safe house in Prenzlauer Berg. We have eyes on the Lichtenberg warehouse. No movement in or out for 2 hours. Thermal shows at least 10. maybe 12 hostiles inside. The package's signature is masked, possibly shielded. The Ashes leadership? A man named Kader, Faisal Kader, German-born, Syrian descent. Small-time radical, mostly graffiti and Molotov cocktails until 6 months ago. Then his group suddenly got smart and well-funded. Source of funding? Untraceable crypto transfers, but the pattern matches payments we've seen linked to Mariah Ventures. Another thread pulling tight. Get me to the safe house. I want to talk to Holloway's team personally. The drive was swift and silent. The safe house was a nondescript apartment above a shuttered bakery. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of coffee, sweat, and gun oil. 8 SEALs from Team 4 were doing final weapons checks. They looked up as I entered. A few eyebrows raised. A female general, even in JSOC, was rare. One stepping into a ground op was unheard of. Lieutenant James Holloway. Holloway stood up. He was mid-30s with a calm, assessing gaze. General, welcome to the party. The briefing is sparse. It's about to get detailed, Lieutenant, I said, moving to a large table where satellite imagery of the warehouse complex was spread out. Listen up. The package is Rheingold, a binary VX nerve agent. It is weapons grade and presumed loaded into dispersal devices. Hostiles are the Ashes, but their muscle, the brain, and the money are elsewhere. Our primary objective is the package. Secure and contain. Secondary objective, take Faisal Kader alive. He is our only link up the chain. This is a capture/kill op. I want Kader breathing. Questions? A SEAL, a hulking master chief named Dalton, spoke. Ma'am, with respect, the building is a maze. If they've rigged it or the dispersal devices, then we move fast and we move quiet. You'll have overhead drone coverage, and I'll be in your ear. I'll be running the op from the mobile command vehicle, 2 blocks out. But if this goes loud, Berlin police and GSG-9 will be the least of our problems. The German government does not know we're here. This is a national secret, even from them. If you're captured, you are deniable. Understood? A grim chorus of hooyah echoed in the room. Suit up. Wheels roll in 10. I turned to Miller, the CIA man. What's the political temperature? High and getting higher. The Chancellor's office is screaming at the Interior Minister. The chemical spill cover won't hold if this goes sideways. There's also chatter. What kind of chatter? From our friends at the BND, the German Federal Intelligence Service. They've detected unusual encrypted traffic between a phone in that warehouse and a number we've tagged before. A burner used by a known fixer for Eastern European arms deals. A man named Gregor Volkov. The name meant nothing to me, but the connection was clear. Richard sells the intel to Volkov. Volkov provides it to the Ashes. They do the dirty work. A perfect cutout. Can we trace Volkov? Trying. He's a ghost. But the call was placed 20 minutes ago. My mind raced. A call now. Why? The package was secured. The threat was issued. Unless they're moving it. The 48-hour threat was a misdirection. They're moving it now. I keyed my comms. Holloway, scratch the 10-minute prep. You move now. Go, go, go. The SEALs erupted into motion. I followed Miller down to the street where a panel van, packed with communications gear, idled. I climbed in, donning a headset. On the screens, I saw the feed from the SEALs' helmet cams as they piled into 2 unmarked vans. All elements, Ghost 9. We have a high probability that the package is being moved imminently. Change of plan. We hit hard and fast. Primary entry via the north and south loading bays. Drone is live, providing overwatch. On my mark. The van sped through the empty pre-dawn streets. The warehouse loomed on the screens, a dark, rectangular blotch. The thermal imaging showed the heat signatures inside were gathering, moving towards the eastern side of the building, towards a loading dock. They're mobilizing. Stand by, stand by. Execute, execute, execute. The van screeched to a halt. Doors flying open. Silhouettes poured out. Breaching charges were placed on 2 large rolling doors. A silent count, then boom, boom. The charges blew with concussive thuds. The SEALs flowed in, the feeds jerking with their movement, muffled shouts in German and Arabic, the stuttering flash of suppressed gunfire. Contact, east wall. 2 hostiles down. Moving to the interior office. Heavy door. Ghost 9. Drone shows a vehicle approaching from the west. Mercedes, Sprinter van. Moving fast. Holloway, intercept that van. Do not let it leave the perimeter. Roger. Dalton, red team, on me. The camera feed split. Holloway's team pushed deeper into the warehouse, engaging scattered resistance. Dalton's team peeled off towards the west side of the building. On the thermal drone feed, I saw the Sprinter van skid to a halt at a side door. 3 figures emerged from the warehouse, carrying a heavy, shielded case between them. The package! They're loading it. All teams, converge on the west side. Stop that van! Gunfire erupted, louder now, unsuppressed. The hostiles were fighting back with desperate intensity. One of the figures carrying the case went down. The other 2 heaved it into the back of the van. They're in. Van is moving. Dalton, can you stop it? Negative. It's armored. Rounds are pinging off. I made a split-second decision. Holloway, status on Cater? We have him. Office in the back. Cuffed and secure. Good. Leave 2 men with him. Everyone else, pursue that van. I'm authorizing lethal force on the vehicle. Stop it by any means necessary. The SEALs poured out of the warehouse, piling back into their vans in a chaotic pursuit. The Sprinter was faster, tearing through the industrial park towards the city autobahn. Ghost 9 Watchtower. German air traffic control is reporting unsanctioned ground pursuit in Lichtenberg. Police channels are lighting up. GSG-9 is being scrambled. We were out of time. Holloway, you have 1 clear shot. Take it. Roger. Gunners up. From the sunroof of the lead pursuit van, a SEAL rose and had 4 anti-tank rocket launcher on his shoulder. A risky move in an urban area, but we couldn't let Rheingold reach the city. Clear backblast. Fire. The rocket streaked through the gray dawn, a trail of smoke and fire. It struck the Sprinter's rear axle. The van didn't explode. It cartwheeled, a mass of twisting metal, and slammed into a concrete pylon with a sound that crackled through the audio feed. Target stopped. Target stopped. Move in. Secure the package. The SEAL's van screeched to a halt. Men fanned out, approaching the wreck. 1 soldier peered into the shattered back of the van. His helmet cam showed the scene. The armored case was intact, its seal still glowing green. Unbreached. Package is secure. Repeat, package is secure. A wave of relief, so potent it was almost dizzying, washed over me. We had it. Berlin was safe, but the feeling lasted only a second. Ghost 9, this is Holloway. The lieutenant's voice was tense. We have a problem. The drivers, they're not ashes. They're pros. Eastern European. And they're carrying Russian-made weapons. And sir, one of them is still alive. He's asking for you. For me? Yes, ma'am. He's saying in broken English, tell Ghost 9. The message is from the banker. The ledger is balanced. Then he bit down on something. He's gone. Cyanide pill. The banker, Richard. The ledger is balanced. What did that mean? Payment received? Or a transaction completed? A sickening realization dawned. We'd moved too predictably. We'd taken the bait. Holloway, the package. Do a full spectral scan. Now. Scanning, reading are odd. The mass is right. The shielding signature is right. But the inner composition, his voice trailed off. It's not Rheingold. It's a mock-up. Sand and ball bearings. It's a decoy. The trap snapped shut. They'd known we were coming. They'd used the warehouse, the chatter, the phone call to Volkov, all of it to draw us in, to make us reveal our hand, to commit our forces. While the real Rheingold was somewhere else. And the dying man's message, it was for me. A taunt. Richard knew I was here. He knew I was coming for him. And he just made his opening move. My secure line chirped. It was Chin from the plane. General, the surveillance team on Richard Morrison. He just received a call. Encrypted, untraceable. Lasted 12 seconds. Immediately after, he accessed his safe. He removed a small item, possibly a passport or a data drive. He then placed a call on an open line to the office of Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Armitage. Armitage, Richard's direct superior, and one of the 10 people with a master override key. And Jackson Morrison, Chin continued, his voice grim. He never showed at the muster point. He's gone AWOL, and we just got a flag from Homeland. A passport under the name John Carter, with facial recognition matching Jackson Morrison, was used to board a Lufthansa flight to Berlin. It landed 20 minutes ago. The chessboard spun in my head. Richard was spooked, preparing to run or to activate his next play. His boss, Armitage, might be in on it. And Jack, the well-meaning, hot-headed SEAL, was now loose in the same city where a WMD was hidden. A fake attack had just happened, and his traitorous father's network was playing its endgame. The game had just gotten infinitely more complicated, and the most dangerous piece wasn't on the board yet. My knight was in play, but he was charging blindly into the dark, and the queen was watching from the shadows, her king exposed. Location: mobile command vehicle, Lichtenberg District, Berlin. 5:03 local time. The relief in the command van curdled into a hard, cold knot of dread. The package was a decoy. Gold was still out there, and the man who'd sold it had just been tipped off. "Ghost 9 to all elements," I said, my voice cutting through the static-filled silence in the van. "Primary objective not met. I repeat, the package is a decoy. The real Gold is still in play. Secure the decoy for forensic analysis. Evacuate the area. German authorities are 90 seconds out. Fall back to Rally Point Delta. Holloway, bring Cater. We're not leaving empty-handed." On the screens, the SEALs moved with grim efficiency, retrieving the dummy case and dragging the groggy, handcuffed Faisal Cater towards their vans. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. "Watchtower, Ghost 9. We have a secondary crisis. Jackson Morrison is in country AWOL. I need a full-court press. Facial recognition on all airport, train station, and traffic cameras. Find him before he gets himself killed or compromises this op further." "Roger, Ghost 9, tasking NSA and BND assets now. Be advised the German Interior Ministry is screaming. The firefight was loud. We're activating diplomatic cover, but your window is closing." I turned to Miller, the CIA man whose face was pale. "Volkov, the arms dealer. The call from the warehouse was to him. He's the pivot. He took Richard's information and brokered the deal with the Ashes. He'd know where the real product is. Where does he roost?" Miller wiped his brow. "He's a ghost, General. We've been after him for years. Last suspected location was a villa in Wannsee, but that was 6 months ago. He moves constantly." "He's here," I said with certainty. "He wouldn't trust a transaction of this magnitude to underlings. He's in Berlin to oversee the handoff. And if the decoy was here, and the Ashes were here, the real product is somewhere else, but Hayes close. He'd want to watch the chaos. Find him. Use every asset, call in every marker. I want an address in 30 minutes. I switched channels to my private link with Chen. Still on the Gulf Stream. "Mark, status on Richard?" "Surveillance team reports he's packed a go bag. He's nervous, pacing." The call to Armitage lasted 3 minutes. After that, Armitage's home phone placed a call to an unlisted number in Berlin. "We're tracing it." Armitage, the Deputy Assistant Secretary. My stomach turned. The corruption went that high. Pull every financial thread between Armitage, Richard, and Mariah Ventures. I want a picture so clear a kindergartner could understand it, and get me a secure line to the president. It's time to cut the head off the snake. The president is in an economic summit in Tokyo. It's the middle of the night there. Wake him up. Location: safe house, Prenzlauer Berg, 6:15 local time. The safe house felt different now. The energy of a successful raid was gone, replaced by the grim aftermath of a strategic defeat. Faisal Cater sat in a metal chair in the center of the room, his wrists zip-tied to its back. He was young, maybe 25, with a wispy beard and eyes burning with a fervent, terrified hatred. One of the SEALs, a medic, was cleaning a cut on his temple. I stood before him, having shed my helmet and heavy vest. Faisal, look at me. He spat on the floor, German curses mixed with Arabic. The men who hired you, I continued, my voice calm, conversational. The ones who gave you the money, the plans, the fake nerve agent. They used you. You and your friends were the distraction, the cannon fodder, while you were drawing our fire. They're somewhere in this city with the real weapon. The one that can kill 100,000 people in an hour. Your people, Muslims, immigrants, children, they don't care. Lies, he screamed, straining against his bonds. You are the killers, the capitalists, the poisoners. We strike a blow for the oppressed. Who gave you the case, Faisal? Who gave you the money? A Russian? Gregor Volkov. A flicker in his eyes. Fear, recognition. I do not know this name. He knows you. He paid you. And then he left you here to die. My men killed 6 of your friends tonight. They died for nothing. For a box of sand. Tell me where Volkov is and you might live. You might even be a hero for stopping the real attack. He laughed, a ragged, broken sound. You think I am afraid to die? I welcome it. The sky will burn and the guilty will choke. He was a true believer, useful for chaos, useless for intelligence. I leaned in close, my voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. I know you're not afraid to die, but are you afraid to fail? Are you afraid that the blow for the oppressed you were promised will turn to wind, and your friends' deaths will be a joke told by men in suits in a villa, drinking vodka? Tell me where Volkov is meeting the buyers for the real weapon. Let me stop them. Prove your faith is stronger than their greed. I saw the conflict in his eyes, the ideology warring with the humiliation of being used as a pawn. He looked at the floor, his breath coming in short gasps. He said he would watch the fireworks from the high place, the place with the angel. I straightened up. The high place with the angel. I looked at Miller, who was monitoring from the corner. Fernsehturm, Miller said immediately. The TV tower at Alexanderplatz. It's the highest building, has a revolving restaurant. The angel could be the nickname for the antenna, or the statue on the Marx Engels Forum nearby. Or the victory column, I countered. The Goldels, the golden angel on top. It's also high, with a viewing platform. Both are tourist spots, packed during the day. He wouldn't do a handoff there. No, I agreed, but he'd watch from there. A vantage point. The handoff would be somewhere he could see, to ensure it goes smoothly, or to trigger it if it doesn't. I turned back to Cater. Where is the handoff? The real case. Where is it going? He was shutting down, retreating into fanatical silence. I nodded to the medic, who stepped forward with a syringe. It was a simple sedative, not sodium pentothal, that was a myth, but enough to make him loopy and compliant. No, wait. Cater thrashed. The river. He said the museum island, the old museum, the one that is a ruin. At dawn, the buyers, they come by boat. The Altes Museum? The Bode Museum? Which museum? Be specific. The broken one, the one hit by the bombs. He said it was poetic. The Pergamon Museum? Miller guessed. It was damaged in the war. No, I said, a cold certainty settling over me. Not the Pergamon. The Neues Museum. It was bombed to a ruin rebuilt. It's on the island. It has a river entrance for deliveries. I checked my watch. Dawn was breaking, a gray light seeping through the blinds. It's happening now. Holloway. The SEAL lieutenant was at my side. Ma'am, get your team to the Neues Museum. Riverside. Civilian clothes, concealed weapons. I want eyes on every boat, every delivery entrance. Do not engage unless you see the package. The buyers are likely professionals. Volkov will be watching from either the TV tower or the victory column. Miller, get your people to both. I want drones in the air, facial recognition on every camera. Find me a Russian arms dealer enjoying the view. And you, General? Holloway asked. I'm going to have a chat with my uncle. I grabbed my sidearm and a light jacket. Chen, get me that line to the president. Now. Location. En route to central Berlin, 6:45 local time. In the back of the Mercedes, my secure satellite phone finally connected. The voice that came on was groggy, but alert. Emily, this had better be world-ending. President Jonathan Strickland. He'd been my father's friend at the Naval Academy. He was one of the 3 people in the world who knew the full truth about Ghost 9 and my mission. It is, Mr. President. Gold is still in play. The Berlin op was a trap, a decoy. The leak came from the office of the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Counterproliferation. Master override key. The trail leads directly to Deputy Assistant Secretary Thomas Armitage and his special liaison, Richard Morrison. My uncle. A long silence on the other end. I could hear him pouring coffee. Richard. God damn it. James always suspected, but proof. Digital proof of the key usage, financial links to the shell company that paid the terror cell, and a dying man's confession implicating the banker. Sir, Armitage is involved. He may be the ringleader. I need authority to bring them in. Now, before Armitage realizes we're on to him and triggers a dead man switch. You have it. Use the Omega protocols. I'll inform the Attorney General and the DNI. But Emily, be careful. Armitage has friends. Powerful friends. If he's been running this, he's not the top. He's a middleman with a fancy title. I know. I'm pulling the thread. Sir, one more thing. Jackson Morrison, Richard's son, is here, in Berlin. AWOL. He's digging. The president's side. The boy always was too smart for his own good. Find him. Contain him. And for God's sake, find that nerve agent. Working on it, sir. I hung up. The car weaved through the early morning Berlin traffic. My phone buzzed with a text from a blocked number. The cleaners, my domestic team. Cleaner 1. Subject RM is mobile. Left residence in Georgetown with go bag. Entered private vehicle. Driver is not his usual service. Vehicle is registered to a Shell LLC linked to Mariah. Tracking. Richard was running. Armitage must have warned him. The net was tightening and the rats were scrambling. Another buzz. This time from Miller. Miller, bingo. Facial rec, got a hit. Gregor Volkov. Purchased a ticket for the observation deck of the Victory column 90 minutes ago. He's still up there. 1 bodyguard visible. Got you. Change of plan, I told the driver. Take me to the Victory column and get me a direct line to Holloway at the museum. Holloway here. No movement yet, General. Place is quiet. A few tourist boats, nothing suspicious. The seller is at the Victory column. He's watching you. Maintain absolute stealth. The buyers will be pros. They'll have their own counter-surveillance. Wait for my signal. Understood. Holding position. The Siegessaal, the Victory column, rose ahead of us, a massive stone column crowned with a gilded statue of Victoria. The morning sun glinted off her wings. The Golden Lizzie. A perfect vantage point to see the museum island and the Spree River. I exited the car a block away, blending with the early morning joggers and tourists. I wore a dark jacket, jeans, my hair tucked under a cap. My sidearm was concealed in a shoulder holster. I entered the column, paid for a ticket, and began the climb up the spiral staircase. My heart was a steady drumbeat. Volkov was here, the man who'd brokered the death of my parents, who was about to broker the death of a city. He was a link, a stepping stone to Armitage and whoever was above him. I reached the observation platform. It was open air with a wrought iron fence. A handful of tourists were taking pictures of the panoramic view of the Tiergarten. And there, leaning against the railing, looking east towards the river, was a man in an expensive overcoat. Gregor Volkov. He looked like a retired banker, not an international arms dealer. Next to him stood a larger man, shoulders straining his jacket, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. The bodyguard. I moved to the opposite side of the platform, pulling out my phone as if taking a picture. I zoomed in on Volkov. I keyed the subvocal mic tucked into my collar. Ghost 9 to Watchtower. I have visual on Volkov. Stand by for audio capture. I had a directional mic in my phone case. I pointed it at him. Volkov was speaking quietly into his own phone in Russian. The birds are in the nest. The cat watched the mice play. Now the eagle must collect its egg. Everything is as planned. The balance is paid. He listened, then nodded. Duh. I will watch. And then I am gone. The ice is thin here now. He hung up. The eagle was the buyer. The egg was Rheingold. The balance was paid. Richard had gotten his money. I needed to know who the buyer was. I needed him to say a name, a location. I made a decision, a risky one. I put my phone away and walked around the platform until I was standing next to him, leaning on the railing. The bodyguard tensed, his hand moving inside his jacket. "A beautiful view," I said in fluent, accentless Russian. "You can see everything from here." Volkov turned, his eyes cold and assessing. He saw a woman, alone, unthreatening. "It is adequate," he replied in Russian, his voice a gravelly murmur. "But the best views are often the most expensive." "Perhaps the price has already been paid," I said, keeping my eyes on the horizon. "By the banker, for the eagle's egg." The change in his demeanor was instantaneous. The casual boredom vanished, replaced by a predator's stillness. The bodyguard took a step closer. "I do not know what you are talking about, girl," Volkov hissed. "Walk away." "The banker ledger is balanced," I said, quoting the dying man's words. "But the eagle is late. The nest you chose was full of cats." His eyes widened. He knew I was not a tourist. "Who are you?" "I'm the ghost," I said softly in English now, "and you're under arrest for terrorism, espionage, and conspiracy to commit mass murder. Your bodyguard moves, he dies. You reach for your phone, you die." I had no cuffs, no backup. It was a bluff, but a convincing one. I let my jacket fall open, just enough for him to see the grip of my pistol. Volkov's face twisted in a snarl. Then he did something unexpected. He laughed. American. Of course. So bold. So stupid. "You think you have me? Look." He pointed a finger towards the museum island. I followed his gaze. On the river, a sleek, white private boat was pulling up to a service dock behind the Nuys Museum. 3 men in dark clothing got out. They moved with the efficient precision of special forces, not the ashes. Professionals. "The eagle has landed," Volkov whispered. "And you are here with me. A clever diversion, yes? Your men are at the museum. My associate is watching them from the TV tower. The moment they move, he calls the boat. The egg is not on the boat. It is in a van 3 blocks away. The boat is the signal. When it leaves, the van leaves. You have already lost." My blood ran cold. Another layer, another misdirection. He'd been playing us from the start. "Holloway." I barked into my mic, "Abort. The boat is a trigger. The package is in a mobile vehicle. Find any van within a 3-block radius of the museum that moves in conjunction with that boat's departure." "Shit, Roger. Scanning." Volkov smiled. "Checkmate, little ghost." Then he moved, not towards me, but towards the railing. In one shockingly fast motion, he vaulted over the wrought iron fence. No. I lunged, but the bodyguard was on me, a massive arm wrapping around my neck. I drove my elbow into his ribs, hearing a gratifying oof, and stomped on his instep. His grip loosened. I twisted, drawing my pistol, but he was fast, slapping it aside. The gun clattered on the stone floor. Tourists screamed, scattering. I didn't have time for a fair fight. As he drew a knife from his belt, I dropped low, swept his legs, and as he fell, I drove the stiffened fingers of my right hand into his throat. He gagged, clutching his neck. I snatched my gun from the ground and ran to the railing. Volkov wasn't on the ground. He'd jumped, but not to his death. He'd landed on the lower, tiled roof of the column's base, maybe 15 feet down. He was scrambling, limping, towards a maintenance ladder. I didn't hesitate. I holstered my gun, climbed over the railing, and jumped. I hit the roof, rolled to absorb the impact, and came up running. Volkov was at the ladder, starting his descent. I fired twice. The suppressed pistol coughed. One round sparked off the iron ladder near his hand. The second took him in the thigh. He screamed, lost his grip, and fell the last 10 feet to the grass below, landing with a sickening thud. I was down the ladder in seconds. He was alive, writhing, clutching his bleeding leg. I stood over him, gun pointed at his head. "Who is the buyer?" "The eagle." "A name?" He spat blood, laughing through the pain. "You will never stop it. The rain will fall. On the guilty. On all of you. The name?" "Go to hell." I heard shouts. German police. The gunfire and the man falling from the column had drawn attention. I had seconds. I knelt, pressing my gun to his good knee. The name, or you'll never walk again. Fear finally broke through his bravado. Korzenko, he gasped. Viktor Korzenko. He is. GRU. The van, it is a refrigerated meat truck. License plate ends BX 729. I stood. Ghost 9 to all units. The buyer is Viktor Korzenko GRU. The package is in a refrigerated meat truck, plate ending Bravo X-ray 729er, near the Newies Museum. Stop that van. Deadly force authorized. I looked down at Volkov. The balance is unpaid, I said, and sprinted towards the street, disappearing into the growing crowd of onlookers, just as the first police car screeched to a halt. Location: streets near Museum Island, Berlin. 7:15 local time. Chaos. My earpiece was a storm of voices. Holloway, I see it. White refrigerated truck, pulling out from a loading bay on Bodestrasse. It's moving east. All elements converge. We are in pursuit. German police are setting up roadblocks. They're not coordinating with us. Watchtower, we need a traffic interdiction on the eastbound lanes of the Unter den Linden now. I was running, dodging pedestrians, my side aching from the jump. I had no car. I was out of the fight. A terrible helplessness clawed at me. I had to get there. Then a miracle. A motorcycle courier, distracted by the police sirens, slowed at a curb. I didn't think. I ran up, shoved him off the bike, and gunned the engine. Sorry, government business. I yelled and shot off into traffic, leaving a sputtering courier in my wake. The bike was fast and agile. I weaved through the morning traffic, following the GPS on my watch that showed the SEAL team's pursuit. The truck was heading towards Alexanderplatz, a massive, open square. A terrible place for a confrontation. Crowded, countless escape routes. He's heading for the square. Holloway shouted. He's going to try to lose us in the crowd or disperse it there. My blood went icy. Alexanderplatz at 7:30 a.m. Thousands of commuters, tourists. The perfect target for a demonstrable show of force. The rain will fall on the guilty. This was the guilt, the heart of capitalist Berlin. You cannot let him reach the square. I screamed into the comms. Take the truck out. Now. We're trying. Civilian traffic is too dense. We can't get a clear shot. I saw the truck ahead, a bulky, white shape bulling its way through traffic, the SEAL's two black vans clinging to it like remeras. We were 2 blocks from the vast openness of Alexanderplatz. I saw the red brick of the TV tower looming ahead. I gunned the bike, slipping between cars, pulling up alongside the passenger van. Holloway was hanging out the window, an M4 in his hands. I can't get a shot on the driver without risking the package. Aim for the tires. I yelled over the roar of engines. They're run flats. It won't stop him in time. Think, the package was in the back. The driver was in the front. The agent was aerosolized, likely on a timer or a remote trigger. Korzenko was GRU. He'd have a dead man switch. If we killed him, it might release the agent. If we rammed the truck, it might rupture the containers. We were 1 block away. I could see people streaming out of the S-Bahn station into the square. There was only one way, a terrible, desperate way. Holloway, on my mark, ram the truck from the side, aim for the middle, try to spin it, block the entrance to the square. General, the package. Do it, that's an order. I swerved the bike ahead, cutting in front of the truck, then slamming on the brakes. The truck's massive grille filled my mirrors. I dropped the bike, letting it skid out from under me, and dove to the side, rolling painfully onto the sidewalk. Crash! The lead SEAL van, driven by Master Chief Dalton, T-boned the truck with sickening force. Metal shrieked. The truck's rear end swung around, its cargo doors facing the square entrance. It rocked but didn't tip. The driver's door flew open. A man, Korzenko, I presumed, stumbled out. He was holding a small black device in his hand, a dead man's switch. Stand back, he yelled in heavily accented English, or I release it all. Here, now. The second SEAL van skidded to a halt. SEALs piled out, weapons trained on him. Civilians were screaming, running, a panicked stampede away from the scene. I got to my feet, my pistol in my hand. I was behind the truck. Korzenko couldn't see me. I saw Holloway and his team, frozen, their weapons aimed but helpless. If they shot him, his finger might come off the switch. If they rushed him, he'd press it. Korzenko's eyes were wild, triumphant. He had us. He started backing towards the square, holding the switch aloft like a trophy. In moments, he'd be lost in the panicking crowd, and he'd either release the agent as a distraction to escape, or he'd get to a prearranged dispersal point. Then, a new voice cut through the chaos. U.S. Navy SEALs, drop the device and get on the ground. It wasn't Holloway. It came from my left. I turned, standing behind a concrete planter. A Glock 19 held in a perfect two-handed grip was Jackson Morrison. His face was set in a mask of focused fury. He was in civilian clothes, disheveled, but his stance was pure professional. What the hell was he doing here? How had he found us? Korzenko spun, startled by the new voice. For a split second, his attention, and the dead man's switch, was pointed away from the main SEAL team and towards Jack. It was the opening. I didn't shout. I didn't hesitate. I stepped out from behind the truck, raised my pistol, and fired twice. The first shot took Korzenko in the right shoulder, the one holding the switch. His arm jerked back. The second shot took him in the center of the forehead. He dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. The black device clattered to the pavement. For a heartbeat, the world was silent. Then someone shouted, "Grenade!" It wasn't a grenade. It was the dead man's switch. Korzenko's dead weight had landed on it. A faint, hissing sound came from the back of the truck. "It's released! Gas! Gas! Gas!" Holloway yelled. "Full MOPP gear! Now!" The SEALs scrambled, pulling on their bulky mission-oriented protective posture suits and masks. They'd come prepared. The civilians weren't so lucky. Panic turned to outright terror as people saw the soldiers suiting up. But I was watching the truck. The hissing was coming from the seam of the cargo doors. A faint, greenish vapor was seeping out. Rheingold. And I was standing 10 feet away with no mask. Time seemed to slow. I saw Jack's horrified face. I saw Holloway, masked, pointing at me, shouting something I couldn't hear. I saw the vapor curling towards me, a lazy, deadly fog. My body moved on instinct, years of training overriding the paralysis of fear. I didn't run away. I ran toward the truck. The agent was aerosolized, designed to be carried on the wind. The square was downwind. If it got into that crowd, I reached the back of the truck. The doors were sealed with a heavy lock. I raised my pistol, aimed at the lock mechanism, and fired. Once, twice. The lock shattered. I grabbed the handle, took a deep breath of what I hoped was still clean air, and yanked the doors open. A wall of greenish mist billowed out, engulfing me. I felt an immediate, acrid burn in my lungs, a stinging in my eyes. My vision blurred. Inside the truck, I could see a complex apparatus. Pressurized canisters, a timer counting down from 10 seconds, and a large, industrial fan pointed at the doors, ready to spew the contents into the square. 9, 8. I had seconds. I plunged into the mist, into the belly of the truck. The agent burned my skin, my throat. I couldn't see. I stumbled, my hands hitting cold metal. The canisters. I found the main valve and twisted with all my might. It was stiff, designed not to be turned by accident. 7, 6. My strength was failing. My lungs were on fire. Black spots danced before my eyes. 5. With a final, guttural scream, I wrenched the valve. It spun shut. The hissing stopped. The fan sputtered and died. The timer reached midnight and beeped harmlessly. I fell back out of the truck, landing hard on the pavement. I was choking, gasping, my body convulsing. I could feel the neurotoxin seizing my muscles, paralyzing my diaphragm. I was drowning on dry land. Through blurry, tear-filled eyes, I saw a masked figure, Holloway, sprinting towards me. He was followed by another figure in a biohazard suit, carrying a medical kit. I felt a sting in my thigh, an injection of atropine and pralidoxime, the standard nerve agent antidote. But Reingold was a variant. Would the standard treatment work? I was lifted, carried. Someone was screaming my name. It sounded like Jack. The world faded to a narrow tunnel of light, then to black. The last thing I heard was Holloway's voice, tight with panic, shouting into his radio. Ghost 9 is down. I repeat, Ghost 9 is down. We have contained the package, but the general is hit. We need a medevac now. She's not breathing. Then silence. Consciousness returned in shards of pain and disorientation. A harsh chemical smell, antiseptic, not Reingold, filled my nose. The world was a blur of sterile white and muted beeps. A pressure on my face, an oxygen mask, tubes snaking from my arms. My body felt like it had been beaten with hammers, then dipped in acid. Every nerve ending screamed with a residual, fiery ache. I tried to move my fingers, a twitch, then my hand, a slow, agonizing clench. Alive. I'm alive. The memory flooded back. The green mist, the burning, the suffocation, the blackness. A figure swam into view beside the bed. Colonel Mark Chin, his face etched with exhaustion and profound relief. General, welcome back. Don't try to speak. Just blink if you can hear me. I blinked once, slowly. Good. You're in the Charite Hospital, Berlin's best. You've been in a medically induced coma for 72 hours. The Reingold variant, it was nasty. Standard nerve agent antidotes slowed it, but didn't stop it. We had to medevac in an experimental enzyme treatment from Fort Detrick. The Germans weren't happy about a U.S. military plane landing with an unapproved bioweapon antidote, but the president made a call. It worked. Your nervous system took a hell of a hit, but the docs say the damage isn't permanent. You'll need rehab, a lot of it. I blinked again. My throat was raw as if I had swallowed glass. I managed a whisper, the sound barely audible through the mask. Package. Chen's lips tightened. Contained. Sealed. The team in MOPP gear secured it minutes after you went down. The dispersal mechanism you disabled was the primary. There was a secondary, but it was inert without the primary sequence. You stopped it, General. Alexanderplatz. Berlin, it's safe. The official story is a terrorist chemical weapon plot was thwarted by the GSG-9 with U.S. intelligence support. No mention of JSOC. No mention of you. Korzenko. Dead. Your shots were definitive. Volkov. In German custody. Thigh wound. Broken pelvis from the fall. He's singing like a canary to avoid extradition to Moscow. He's given us Armitage, a dozen mid-level Pentagon bureaucrats, and half a dozen shell companies. The money trail is a waterfall. Richard. The name was a croak. Chen's face darkened. We lost him. I tried to sit up, a bolt of pain lancing through my chest. Chen gently but firmly pressed me back down. The surveillance team had him. He was heading to a private airfield in Maryland. The cleaners moved in to detain. There was a struggle. His driver, a hired gun from Mariah's payroll, opened fire. 2 of our men were wounded. Richard took a round in the crossfire, in the shoulder, non-fatal, but during the medevac to a secure facility, the ambulance was intercepted. Intercepted. The word was a scrape of air by individuals presenting FBI credentials. Flawless forgeries. They overpowered the guards, took Richard. We've found the ambulance abandoned. No trace. He's gone. Armitage is also in the wind. His house is empty. His bank accounts were drained via cryptocurrency transfers over the last 48 hours. They had a bug-out plan and they executed it. Fury, hot and impotent, burned through the pain medication. They'd gotten away. The men who killed my parents, who tried to murder a city, had slipped through the net. Jack! I forced out. Chen's expression became unreadable. Petty Officer Morrison is here, in the waiting room. Has been for 2 days. He's the one who applied the initial tourniquet to your leg after you were shot and helped carry you to the medevac. He saw everything. He knows. He's also facing a world of trouble for going AWOL and interfering in a classified op. The SEALs want his head, but he saved your life. The medics said his first aid kept you from bleeding out from the gunshot wound before the nerve agent even became the main issue. Gunshot wound? I looked down, awareness dawning. Beneath the hospital gown, my left thigh was a mass of bandages. I remembered the searing impact in the truck, the struggle. I'd been so focused on the toxin, I'd forgotten the bullet. Kurzenko must have gotten a shot off before I killed him. He wants to see you, Chin said carefully. And your aunt, Patricia Morrison, is on a plane from D.C. She's been calling every half hour, hysterical, about Richard's disappearance, about Jack, about you. The press is starting to get whispers. Prominent defense consultant missing after Berlin terror alert. The official line is he's assisting with the investigation. It won't hold long. I closed my eyes. The web was tangling. My body was broken. My targets were gone. My cover was obliterated. And my family, such as it was converging on my hospital room. The president, I whispered. He's called 3 times. He's putting together a special task force, reporting directly to him, to run down Armitage and Richard. He wants you to head it, when you're able. I shook my head, a minute movement. No, not a task force. A scalpel. One piece. Armitage. He's the key. He's the link to whoever is above. Richard was the banker. Armitage is the quartermaster. We find him, we find the general. I opened my eyes, meeting Chen's gaze. Get me my tablet, encrypted, and let Jack in. 5 minutes. Then I need to talk to the German chancellor. And then I need to see my aunt. General, you need to rest. I'll rest when they're in a cell or a coffin, Colonel. Get me the tablet. Chen knew better than to argue. He left, returning a moment later with a secure tablet mounted on a rolling stand. He positioned it before me, entered a complex series of passwords, and left the room. A minute later, the door opened. Jackson Morrison looked like hell. He was still in the same civilian clothes, now stained and rumpled. Dark circles pooled under red-rimmed eyes. He stood just inside the door, a stranger looking at a stranger. Emily. His voice was hoarse. Petty officer, I replied, my own voice weak but clear. The mask was off. The pretense was over. A flicker of pain crossed his face at the formal title. They said you'd live. They weren't sure for a while. I'm hard to kill. You disobeyed orders. You went AWOL. You inserted yourself into a Tier 1 operation. You could be court-martialed. You could spend the rest of your life in Leavenworth. I know. He didn't look away. I saw the data. Before I left. The link to my father. The money. Everything. I knew you were in Berlin. I knew it was about him. I had to come. I had to see. He took a step closer. You're Ghost 9. A general. You've been hunting him. For years. For your parents. It wasn't a question. Yes. And he sold that weapon. He tried to kill all those people. He killed your parents. My uncle and aunt. The words were a statement of horrific fact, wrenched from him. Yes. Jack's composure cracked. He slumped into the chair beside the bed, his head in his hands. My whole life. The house, the cars, the schools, the pride of me mother had, it was all paid for with blood. My father is a monster. He looked up, his eyes searching mine. And you. All those years. Thanksgiving. You just sat there and took it. The jokes. The condescension. While you were this. He gestured vaguely at the room. At the invisible weight of command. The peace they don't see coming. I murmured. I saw it, he said quietly. At dinner. In your eyes. I just didn't know what I was seeing. He leaned forward. I'm sorry. For all of it. For my mother. For him. For not seeing it sooner. You're not responsible for his sins, Jack. Aren't I? I benefited from them. I wore the name. He took a deep, shuddering breath. What happens now? To me? That depends. The Navy wants to crucify you. I can stop them. I can make your insertion here look like a sanctioned, if a regular, JSOC recruitment op. I can bury the AWOL charge. But there's a price. Name it. You work for me. Not as a SEAL. As part of my team. The one that's going to find your father and Armitage and burn their entire network to the ground. It's black, it's dirty, and it's probably treason adjacent. You'll have no official cover. If you're caught, I'll deny you. You'll vanish. But you'll be working to clean the Morrison name and to bring justice for my parents, our family. He didn't hesitate, not for a second. Where do I sign? You already did, by walking in here. I managed a weak smile. Go get cleaned up. Get some real food. You're no good to me like this. Report to Colonel Chin outside. He'll get you started. And Jack, thank you for the tourniquet. He stood, squaring his shoulders. The lost, horrified boy was gone, replaced by the determined operator. Don't mention it, General. He paused at the door. My mother is on her way. She's not going to understand any of this. I know. Send her in when she arrives. And Jack, one more thing. Your father's escape. The fake FBI. That's a level of pull Armitage shouldn't have. Who protects a rogue deputy assistant secretary. His eyes narrowed. Someone higher. Someone much higher. Dismissed petty officer. He left. Alone, I turned to the tablet. The world had moved on in 3 days. News feed scrolled. Berlin attack thwarted. Terror cell leader in custody. U.S. official missing. I opened a secure file Chin had prepared. It was the consolidated intelligence on Thomas Armitage. Born Thomas Arkady, son of a Polish immigrant. West Point, distinguished service in the Gulf War. A swift rise through the Pentagon bureaucracy. Known as a bureaucratic warrior. Brilliant at navigating budgets and politics. No wife, no children. A patron of the opera, a model of discreet, dedicated service, and a lie. Deep financial analysis showed a shadow life. Offshore accounts in the Caymans and Cyprus, unexplained wealth traced back 20 years. The first major deposit coincided with the loss of a shipment of Stinger missiles in Afghanistan in 2002. My father had been investigating that loss. Armitage wasn't just a corrupt official. He was a career trader, a mole planted so deep and grown so powerful. He was now part of the tree itself. He didn't just sell secrets. He shaped policy, steered contracts, and buried investigations. My parents' death wasn't a one-off. It was standard operating procedure for him, and he reported to someone who could orchestrate a daring, professional snatch of a high-value asset from a U.S. military medevac on American soil. Someone with assets that good wasn't just a politician. They were a spy master, a power broker, possibly a patriot in their own twisted view. A soft chime came from the tablet. An incoming secure video call. The identifier, POGSECRETARY. I adjusted the bed, ran a hand through my matted hair, and accepted. President Jonathan Strickland's face filled the screen. He looked older, wearier than our last call. The Tokyo summit backdrop was gone. He was in the treaty room, late at night. Emily. Good God. It's good to see your eyes open. Mr. President, the doctors tell me you'll walk, maybe even run again. You gave us all one hell of a scare. The job's not done, sir. Armitage. Richard. I know. We're tracking every financial drip. NSA is eating the world's data, looking for them. But, Emily, we found something. In the forensic audit of Armitage's Special Projects Fund, the one he used to finance Mariah Ventures. He shared a file to my screen. It was a list of disbursements, millions to shell companies. But one line item from 5 years ago was different. A $250,000 payment, not to a company, but to a law firm. Wexler Kane, LLC. The memo line, Estate Planning B. Strickland Trust. My breath hitched. Sir. Benjamin Strickland, my nephew, my brother's boy. He died 5 years ago. Rock climbing accident in Colorado. The president's face was a mask of stoic grief. The trust was for his education. The lawyer, Harold Wexler, was a family friend. He handled it personally. I never looked at the details. My brother was devastated. I just signed what was put in front of me. I opened the attached document. It was a trust amendment, signed by the president, appointing a new co-trustee, Thomas Armitage. The amendment gave Armitage unilateral authority to make strategic investments from the trust's principal. He didn't steal from you, sir, I said softly, the horror dawning. He made you an accomplice. He laundered his blood money through a trust belonging to the president's family. If this ever came out, it would look like I was taking kickbacks, or that my family was. It's a poison pill, a guarantee of my silence or my destruction. The president's fist clenched on the desk. This goes beyond corruption, Emily. This is an attack on the office, on the Republic. He has something on who knows how many others. This is how he stayed hidden. This is how he had the pull to snatch your uncle. The puzzle piece snapped into place with chilling clarity. Armitage wasn't the endgame. He was the chief manipulator, the puppet master who ensnared useful people with their own secrets or their family's vulnerabilities. He didn't just work for a higher power. He created higher powers by owning them. We have to go public, sir, I said. Controlled. We expose the scheme. You expose the blackmail. You become the victim, not the perpetrator. And risk a constitutional crisis? Half of Congress would call for my impeachment before the facts were out. The other half is probably in his pocket. No, we find him. We take him quietly. We make him talk. And then we burn it all down. The president's eyes were flint. You're off the books, Emily. Officially, you're on extended medical leave. Unofficially, you have the keys to the kingdom. Find Thomas Armitage. Find out who he answers to. I am authorizing Operation Scorched Earth. You are the match. Light it. The call ended. I was alone with the immensity of it. The President of the United States was compromised, and I was his instrument of vengeance. The door to my room burst open. Patricia Morrison stood there, a vision of distressed luxury in a wrinkled designer travel suit. Her eyes were wide, panicked, scanning the room before landing on me. The beeping monitors, the tubes, the pale woman in the bed. It clearly didn't fit the image of the pathetic secretary. Emily? Oh my God, what happened? They said you were injured in the terrorist thing in Berlin? What were you even doing here? And where is Richard? No one will tell me anything. The police, the FBI, they just say he's assisting. Jack won't answer his phone. What is going on? Her voice was a shrill crescendo of fear and entitlement. The woman who'd mocked the secretary was gone, replaced by a terrified wife and mother whose polished world was fracturing. Close the door, Aunt Patricia, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. She did mechanically, then advanced to the bedside. Tell me, right now. Sit down. I will not sit down. I demand. Patricia. The word cracked out, not loud, but with the full, glacial authority of my rank. It stopped her cold. She stared at me, truly looked at me, perhaps for the first time. She saw the steel in the eyes, the unyielding set of the jaw beneath the pallor. She slowly sank into the chair Jack had vacated. Richard is not assisting an investigation. I began, my tone flat factual. He is a fugitive from justice. He is wanted for treason, espionage, conspiracy to commit mass murder, and the murder of my parents. Her face went from pale to ashen. What insane? Emily, have the drugs addled your brain? Your parents died in a car accident. Richard is a consultant. He works for the government. He worked against the government for decades. He sold secrets. He arranged murders. 2 days ago, he sold the location and security codes for a weapon-grade nerve agent to a terror cell. The plan was to release it in downtown Berlin. I stopped it. The man you see in this bed is what it cost to stop your husband's plot. She shook her head, a frantic, denying motion. No. This is a mistake. A terrible mistake. Or a setup. Richard has enemies. You've always been jealous. Unstable. After your parents died, you've concocted this fantasy to destroy our family. I reached for the tablet, wincing at the pain. I pulled up a file, a screenshot of the financial transfer from Armitage's office to the Europa Pharmalogistic server, with Richard's digital key signature highlighted. I turned the screen to her. Recognized that? His digital signature, the one he uses to authorize million-dollar contracts. He used it to send the transport route for the nerve agent to the men who stole it. Patricia's eyes scanned the data. She didn't understand the technical details, but she recognized her husband's name, his title. The frantic denial in her eyes began to waver, replaced by a dawning, gut-wrenching horror. I pulled up another file, the coroner's original, unaltered toxicology report for my parents, with the paralytic agent listed, and the signed affidavit from the morgue attendant, describing the pressure he received from a Mr. Morrison's office to change it. "This is the man you've been married to. The man whose money paid for your house, your galas, your life. My parents' blood paid for your silk dresses, Patricia." A low moan escaped her lips. She clutched at her chest. He said it was consulting, defense contracts, lobbying. It was complicated. It was treason, and he's gone. His partners, the ones he truly worked for, scooped him up when we got too close. He's in the wind, and he's not coming back for you. You're a liability now. The finality of it, the utter collapse of her world, hit her. The social armor, the condescension, the pride, it all shattered. Great, heaving sobs racked her frame. She wasn't crying for me, or for my parents, or for the people of Berlin. She was crying for herself, for the life that was revealed to be a beautiful, gilded lie. "Jack!" she gasped between sobs. "My boy!" "Jack knows. He's chosen his side. He's working with me now, to clean up the mess his father made. You have two choices, Patricia. You can go back to D.C., play the confused, grieving wife for the press, and live out your days in the ruin of your husband's legacy. Or you can help us." She looked up, her makeup a ruined mess. "Help? How?" "You know his habits, his fears, his hidden pleasures, the friends you thought were odd, the vacations that were business, the donations he insisted on making. You are a treasure trove of social intelligence. You can help us find the people he worked with, the ones who have him now." The idea of becoming an asset, of betraying her husband, even the monster he was, clearly revolted her. But the alternative, social oblivion, poverty, the truth coming out, was worse. Self-preservation, her oldest and strongest instinct, won out. She wiped her face with a trembling hand, a pathetic attempt to regain composure. "What do you need?" "You'll speak with Colonel Chin. You'll tell him everything, every name, every party, every whisper. And you will do it with a pleasant smile on your face for the cameras outside. Is that clear?" She nodded, a broken, defeated doll. "Good. Chun is outside. Send him in on your way out." She stood unsteady on her feet. She looked at me, and for a moment I saw not my hateful aunt but a shattered woman. "All those years. I'm sorry, Emily." "I'm not," I said, turning back to the tablet. "The secretary you mocked was the weapon that destroyed your world. Now get out." She fled. Chin entered a moment later, his eyebrow raised. That sounded intense. "Get a team on her. Gentle debrief. She'll talk. She has nothing left to lose but her remaining money. Use that. Now the real work. I need everything on Vice President Clayton Hayes." Chun froze. "The Vice President? General, that's the only person with the reach, the motive, and the lack of oversight to run a puppet like Armitage. Hayes is a former 4-star Army general. He sits on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He has a blind trust managed by, guess which law firm?" Chen's face paled. "Wexler Kane. And," I continued, pulling up another file, 10 years ago, then General Hayes was in command of Allied forces Southern Europe. A shipment of anti-tank missiles vanished from a base in Italy. The investigation was led by a diligent DIA analyst, Colonel James Thorne, my father. His report implicated logistical contractors with ties to the Italian mob. The report was buried by higher authority. Hayes received a Distinguished Service Medal 6 months later and retired to run for Senate. Armitage was the logistics officer on Hayes's staff at the time. The connections were there, hidden in plain sight. A perfect symbiosis. The war hero politician with ambition, and the cunning bureaucrat who could make problems and investigators disappear. Hayes provided the protection, the legitimacy, the access. Armitage did the dirty work, ensnaring others, building a web of complicity. My parents had been a loose end. Berlin was a profit center, and I was the loose end that had come back to life. "We can't touch the vice president," Chin whispered, aghast. "Not without irrefutable, rock-solid proof. And even then, we're not going to touch him. We're going to make him reach for Armitage, and we're going to catch his hand in the cookie jar." A plan, desperate and audacious, began to form in my mind. It relied on arrogance, on panic, and on a ghost he thought was dead or dying. Get me the White House Communications Agency. I need a secure, untraceable line set up. And I need a message delivered to the Vice President's personal emergency number. A message that can only come from one person. Who? Thomas Armitage. Tell him his banker is ready to talk and that he has the ledger. Chapter 5 word count. 3,886. Chapter 5. The aftermath and the ascent continued. Location: Charite Hospital/Safe House, Berlin. 48 hours later. Strength returned slowly, a grudging concession from my battered body. The doctors were amazed and mildly terrified by my progress. I ignored their protests, trading the 4 for a cane, the hospital gown for dark, comfortable fatigues. The high-security ward became my forward operating base. Chin and Jack became my legs. Jack, now operating under the temporary call sign Rook, had thrown himself into the work with a fervor that bordered on penance. His SEAL skills were invaluable, his insider knowledge of the world his father inhabited even more so. He was the one who identified the VP's favorite off-the-books meeting spot, a private hunting lodge in the Shenandoah Valley owned by a defense contractor who'd benefited greatly from Hayes's committee assignments. Patricia, debriefed over 2 grueling days, had provided a cascade of small details. The charity galas Richard insisted they attend where Hayes was always present. The fishing trips Richard took with Hayes's chief of staff. The unexplained, exquisite jewelry that would appear after Hayes won a contentious budget vote that favored Mariah-linked companies. It was a map of corruption drawn in champagne and caviar. The trap was set. The bait was crafted with exquisite care. Location: undisclosed safe house, Virginia, USA, via secure video link. I sat before a monitor, the camera feed showing only a silhouette of me against a dark background. My voice was modulated by a sophisticated filter, making it a genderless digital whisper. On the other end of the encrypted, bouncing satellite link was Vice President Clayton Hayes. The message, purportedly from a panicked, hidden Thomas Armitage, had drawn him out. He thought he was speaking to his fixer. "Thomas, for God's sake, where are you?" Hayes's voice was a low, urgent groan. He was in a wood-paneled room. His study at the lodge, we guessed. The heat is unbearable. The Morrison woman is a loose cannon, and she's still alive. The president has a task force. The task force is a feint, Mr. Vice President. The digital voice that was mine replied. Thorne is the real threat. She has the ledger, the real one, not the fragments, the complete record. From the stingers in O2 to the Ringgold payoff. She's compiling it for the president. She plans to go public in 72 hours. A sharp intake of breath. How? Morrison had the only copy. Richard Morrison was a fool who kept backups. His son has them. Jack, he's given them to Thorne. She's at Walter Reed, under heavy guard, but she's active. We have a narrow window. The ledger must be destroyed, and the source must be silenced. Permanently. This time, no accidents. A statement. Hayes was silent for a long moment. We could almost hear the gears turning, the cold calculus of a man who'd ordered deaths before. The president trusts her implicitly. If she's under his protection at Walter Reed. Not Walter Reed. She's being moved tonight, a black ambulance, to a private CIA medical facility in Reston. Less scrutiny. The route is here. A file was transmitted, a flawless forgery of a Secret Service transport manifest, complete with timing and route. A vehicle accident would be tragic, but the ledger that is the priority. My location is compromised. I will be at the secondary extraction point. I have the master copy. We must burn it together and then vanish. The Swiss accounts are ready. Yes, the coordinates. Send them. First, confirmation. The cleaner for the Thorne problem. Use the usual team. I need to hear the order. This was the gamble. We needed him to explicitly order my assassination. On a line we were recording. Hayes hesitated. The paranoia of a lifelong conspirator warred with his panic. The bait was too perfect, the threat too dire. Use Sigma Team. The usual protocol. The ambulance on the Dulles Access Road. Make it messy. And Thomas, no more mistakes. After this, we're even. You get your retirement. I get the silence. Understood, Mr. Vice President. The coordinates are sent. I will see you at dawn. The link died in the safe house in Berlin. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. We had it. The Vice President of the United States had just ordered the murder of a U.S. general. Chin, I said, audio and video captured cleanly. It's admissible. The Attorney General and the Director of the FBI are on standby with the President. They heard it all on a live loop. Jack, Sigma Team is a private military contractor on the Pentagon's blacklist. Ties to half a dozen war crimes. We've identified 6 members. They're being tracked. The FBI will scoop them up the moment they mobilize. And the Vice President, he took the bait. He's moving. Just left the lodge in a private helicopter. Flight plan filed for an emergency meeting at the Pentagon, but the transponder will go dark over rural Maryland. He's heading for the extraction point you gave him, the abandoned Coast Guard station on the Patuxent River. I stood, testing my weight on the cane. The pain was a distant throb. The adrenaline of the hunt was the best anesthetic. Then it's time to go home. Get me on the next flight to Andrews. I want to be there when he arrives. General, with all due respect, you should let the FBI handle the arrest. You're in no condition. Colonel, I interrupted, my voice soft. He ordered my parents' death. He ordered Berlin. He just ordered mine. I will be there to look him in the eye when the cuffs go on. Get the plane ready. Location: abandoned Coast Guard station, Patuxent River, Maryland. 5:45 local time dawn. The station was a ghostly silhouette against the pink and orange streaks of dawn. The air was cold, smelling of salt and decay. I stood in the shadows of a rusted boat shed. Chin beside me, Jack a silent presence a few yards away, scanning the tree line with a sniper's rifle. 50 FBI hostage rescue team members were concealed in the surrounding woods and buildings. The sky was buzzing with a drone, invisible and silent. A black SUV, no plates, slithered down the overgrown access road and stopped near the dilapidated dock. 2 men got out, armed, scanning. Then Vice President Clayton Hayes emerged. He wore a casual jacket and slacks, but his posture was rigid, military. He carried a heavy briefcase, the master copy of the ledger he expected to burn. He looked around, impatient. Thomas, are you here? I stepped out of the shadows, leaning on my cane, not in a hospital gown, in my dress uniform, the one I'd had flown in. The stars on my shoulders gleamed dully in the low light. Hayes froze. His 2 bodyguards, Sigma team members, whirled, weapons rising. Stand down, gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying in the still air. The woods are full of FBI HRT. You're covered from 12 angles. Hayes's face went through a fascinating transformation. Confusion, disbelief, dawning horror, and finally a cold, furious understanding. Thorne, Mr. Vice President, or should I say General Hayes? You're a long way from the Situation Room. This is an outrage, a setup. I was told to meet a national security advisor here. You were told to meet Thomas Armitage to burn the ledger and confirm the assassination of General Emily Thorne. We have the audio. We have the video. Sigma team is in custody. Your helicopter pilot is singing. It's over. For a second, I saw the 4-star general in him, the man used to command. His back straightened. You have nothing. Coerced testimony. Fabricated evidence. The word of a renegade officer with a personal vendetta, built on the lies of a traitor and his unstable son. The president will never believe you. The country will never believe you. The president believes me. He's listening right now. I pointed to the tiny camera on my lapel, and the country will believe the evidence. The money trail from Mariah to your blind trust. The buried report from my father. Your order for Sigma team to intercept an ambulance last night. And your own voice ordering my death. The Attorney General is drafting the indictment as we speak. Treason, murder, conspiracy. You're finished. The facade crumbled. The rage broke through. You stupid girl. You have no idea what you've destroyed. This wasn't about money. It was about security. Real security. The weakness in this country, the bureaucracy, the idealism, it's a cancer. We built a system within the system. to do what needed to be done, to make the hard choices you politicos are too squeamish to make. Your parents were a security risk. Berlin was a financial necessity to fund the next phase. You think you've won? You've handed the keys to the wolves. The only wolf here is you, sir, said a new voice. From behind the boat shed, President Jonathan Strickland emerged, flanked by the director of the FBI and the Attorney General. His face was like granite. And your pack is disbanded. Clayton Hayes, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, treason against the United States, and a host of other crimes. Please surrender your weapon. Hayes looked from the president to me, to the HRT agents now emerging from the woods, rifles trained. The briefcase fell from his hand, hitting the dock with a thud. The fight left him. He was just an old, tired man who'd sold his honor piece by piece until nothing was left. As the FBI agents moved in to cuff him, he locked eyes with me one last time. Your father was a good soldier. He followed orders. He just asked the wrong questions. And I said, holding his gaze, found the right answers. They led him away. The president approached me. Emily, are you sure you should be out of bed? I'm sure, sir. Some things you need to see for yourself. He nodded, clapping a hand on my good shoulder. You did it. You brought down a vice president. It's going to be hell. A political earthquake. But it was the right thing. He looked at Jack, who had lowered his rifle and was walking over. And you, Petty Officer Morrison, your service today and your courage in coming forward will not be forgotten. The AWOL charge is expunged. You'll receive a transfer to General Thorne's unit, if that's what you want. It is, Mr. President, Jack said, his voice firm. Good. The president looked out at the rising sun glinting on the river. Clean up this mess, General. Then take some real leave. You've earned it. They left, leaving Chen, Jack, and me on the dock. The first rays of sun broke over the water, warm on my face. It's not over, is it? Jack said quietly. My father, Armitage, they're still out there. They are, I said, but their protection is gone. Their money will freeze. Their network is shattered. They're just two fugitives now, and we have all the time in the world to hunt them. I turned to him, but first, we have a press conference to prepare for. The world is about to meet General Emily Thorne, and I need my secretary to help me with my notes. A ghost of a smile touched Jack's lips. Yes, ma'am. As we walked back to the cars, my cane tapping on the old wood, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt resolved. The ledger was balanced, but in my favor. The ghosts of my parents could finally rest. The secretary was gone. The ghost was stepping into the light. And the war, I knew, was never really over. It just changed fronts. My encrypted phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't recognize with a high-level encryption tag. Ghost 9. New protocol. The ashes were a branch. The roots are deeper. Your work is recognized. Report to Site Baker for briefing. Level Omega. I stared at the message. The roots are deeper. Armitage and Hayes weren't the end. They were just another layer. Someone had recognized my work. Someone with Omega clearance. I looked at the rising sun, then at the message. I typed a one-word reply. Acknowledged. The game wasn't over. The board was just bigger. And the piece they'd all finally seen was ready to play. The hospital room was no longer a prison. It was a command post. The pervasive scent of antiseptic was now layered with the smell of fresh coffee and the faint, clean ozone of high-end electronics. Monitors beeped a steady, reassuring rhythm, syncing with the software of a laptop fan and the occasional tap of a stylus on a secure tablet. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting bright stripes on the polished floor. I was seated in a chair by the window, dressed in a simple black athletic suit, my leg propped on a stool. The cane leaned against the wall within reach. On the tablet before me was a live feed from a closed-circuit system in a non-disclosed detention facility. On the screen, Thomas Armitage sat in a featureless room, facing two interrogators. He looked diminished, a suit draped on a husk. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold, simmering resentment. He said nothing for 2 days. Colonel Chen's voice came through my earpiece. He was monitoring from a station outside the room. Not a word since his arrest. Lawyers up, of course. Top tier. From a firm that's probably on his payroll. He's waiting for the system to save him. The system is what he perverted, I said, my voice low. It won't save him now. He's waiting for a sign from his other protectors, the ones above Hayes. We found no evidence of anyone above Hayes, General. Financially, operationally, Hayes was the apex. The money, the influence, it all flowed to him. Armitage was the architect. Hayes was the patron and ultimate beneficiary. I shook my head, a faint, painful movement. Hayes was a general, a politician. Armitage's scheme had a philosophical coldness, a long-term vision Hayes didn't possess, building a system within the system. That wasn't Hayes's rhetoric. That was someone else's dogma. Hayes was the figurehead, the source of legitimacy. But the brain, I think the brain got away. The door to my room opened, and Jack entered, carrying a file folder. He'd gotten a regulation haircut and was wearing the casual uniform of my newly formed, yet unnamed Special Activities Detachment. He looked older, the last vestiges of the Golden Boy seal scoured away by fire and betrayal. General, the forensic accounting team finished the preliminary dive into the Omega Fund. He handed me the folder. It's a slush fund Armitage managed, separate from the Mariah money, even more encrypted. But they found a pattern. For the last 15 years, on the same date, November 12th, a payment of exactly $1 million untraceable crypto is sent out. Not to an account, to a sequence of dead drops. The last one was in Zurich 6 months ago. November 12th. The date meant nothing in the public record, but in my father's private journal, a digitized copy of which was seared into my memory, it was circled with a question mark and a single chilling notation. Project Prometheus delivered. The god is unbound. What is Project Prometheus? I asked more to myself than to Jack. No record in any database we can access. Chin replied via the earpiece. The name appears in a decommissioned DIA server archive, but the file is a shell. Metadata indicates it was a theoretical study on next-generation asymmetric warfare, commissioned by a Senate subcommittee chaired by then-Senator Clayton Hayes. The principal researcher is listed as Dr. Alden Locke. Deceased. Car accident in 2010. Another accident. The pattern was a sickness. Find everything on Alden Locke. His family, his colleagues, his dry cleaner. I want to know what he ate for breakfast the day he died. On it, Chin said. Jack shifted his weight. There's more. About my father. His voice was carefully neutral. The search of his office safe. The cleaners found it hidden behind a panel. It wasn't just passports and cash. There was a ledger, a physical, handwritten one. Old school. Codes, initials, amounts, and a key. He placed a small evidence bag on the table beside me. Inside was a sleek, black USB drive unmarked. It was sealed in a Faraday pouch. The texts say it's a high-density, one-time, decrypt key. It's asking for a 256-character alphanumeric password. We have 3 attempts before it fries itself. A physical ledger and a digital key. Richard Morrison, the old-school fixer, covering his bases. The ledger was in a safe. The password, he'd keep that separate, in his head, or with someone he trusted. My mother, Jack said, anticipating my thought. She's in the family lounge. She's calmer. Wants to talk to you. Says she remembered something. I looked at Jack, seeing the strain in his eyes, having to pry his family's secrets apart, to use his mother as an asset. Bring her in. Patricia Morrison entered a few minutes later. The transformation was startling. The designer armor was gone, replaced by simple, expensive slacks and a sweater. Her face was free of its usual war paint, pale and lined with a grief that was no longer performative. She held a large paper shopping bag. Emily, she said, her voice quiet, you look better. Sit, Patricia. Jack says you remembered something. She sat, clutching the bag. After our talk in Berlin, I went home, to the house in Georgetown. It felt like a tomb. I started going through things. Old things. Richard's things. In the back of his closet, there was a box. From his father. My father-in-law. He was a cruel old bastard, loved puzzles, riddles. She reached into the bag and pulled out an ornate wooden box, the size of a large book. It was inlaid with mother of pearl in a complex geometric pattern. This was in it. I'd seen it before on his desk. He said it was a puzzle box from Kyoto, impossible to open. A decorative paperweight. I took the box. It was heavy, solid. The pattern was not just decorative, it was a maze. A puzzle. I ran my fingers over the cool surface. He said it was impossible to open. He enjoyed watching people try and fail. He'd laugh. Her lips thinned, a cruel laugh. I always hated that box. I turned it over, examining it. There were no seams, no locks. Just the intricate, inlaid maze. My father had loved puzzles too. He'd taught me that the solution was often in misdirection. The maze wasn't a lock, it was a combination. A path. I traced the maze with my fingertip, starting at the single point of entry. The path twisted and turned, branching, leading to dead ends. It was fiendishly complex, but as I traced, I felt minuscule, almost imperceptible clicks under the mother of pearl. Pressure points, a sequence. I closed my eyes, blocking out the room, the monitors, the past week. I saw the maze in my mind, not as a puzzle to solve, but as a story to follow. The path of a man like Richard. Cunning, greedy, selfish. It wouldn't be the most elegant solution. It would be the one that benefited only the traveler. A path that took all the shortcuts, seized all the advantages, and led to a single, central point. My finger moved, not following the logical path, but the avaricious zone. At every branch, I chose the turn that led inward, toward the center, ignoring the longer, more scenic routes. Click, click, click. On the seventh turn, a final, soft click echoed in the quiet room. A nearly invisible seam appeared around the edge of the box's lid. I lifted it. Inside, nestled on black velvet, was not a key, but a sheet of aged parchment. On it, in a spidery, old-fashioned hand, was a single, long string of characters. Letters, numbers, symbols. 256 characters, exactly. And beneath it, a short message. For my son, Richard. The combination to all fortunes and all cages. Remember, the lock is of your own making. Alistair, Richard's father, giving him the power and the warning. I held up the parchment. Jack immediately took a picture with a secured phone and sent it to the tech team. Run it against the key. Now, we waited in tense silence for 5 minutes. Patricia stared at her hands. Jack's jaw was clenched. My own heart thudded a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. Chen's voice burst into the silence, sharp with excitement. It's open. The key is decrypted. It's my God. It's a map. A global map. Bank accounts in Switzerland, Singapore, the Caymans. Holdings. Shell corporations within shell corporations. But it's more. It's a personnel file. Code names. Dossier. Atlas. Vulcan. Janus. Payments. Operations. Project Prometheus here. It's not a weapons system. It's a network. A privatized intelligence and wet works apparatus. Alden Locke wasn't the researcher. He was the first recruit. Hayes and Armitage were regional managers. This goes global. This goes higher. How high? I asked, the room feeling suddenly cold. The references, they're oblique, but the funding flows upward to a central node, designated Olympus. No name, just a symbol. On my tablet, an image appeared. It was a simple, stylized icon. A mountain peak above clouds, with a single bolt of lightning striking its summit. Olympus, the home of the gods. And we had just dethroned one of them. The others would be watching. Patricia began to cry, silent tears of shame and realization. All of it, every good thing, a lie built on that evil. I looked from the symbol on the screen to the broken woman before me. The ledger was balanced, all right. It had crushed everything it touched. Chen, package this. Omega Black. Eyes only for the president and me. Begin discreet tracing on the Olympus financial flows. I want to know where that lightning bolt lands. Yes, General. Jack, take your mother home. A secure home, not the Georgetown house. Then report back. We have work to do. He nodded, helping a trembling Patricia to her feet. As they reached the door, she turned back. Emily, I I know, I said, not unkindly but with finality. The time for apologies between us was past. There was only the work ahead. Location: the United States Capitol, Washington, D.C. 1 month later, the chamber of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence was packed, humming with a tense, anticipatory energy. Cameras lined the back and sides, their red lights like predatory eyes. Every seat in the public gallery was filled. The air was thick with the smell of polished wood, stale coffee, and ambition. I sat at the long witness table alone. I wore my Class A dress uniform, every ribbon, every medal, every star in perfect alignment. My hair was pulled back in a severe knot. My face was a calm mask, though the physical toll of the last month was still visible in the faint shadows under my eyes and the careful way I held myself. The cane was present, leaning against the table, a visible reminder of cost. Across from me sat the committee members, a mix of grave concern, theatrical solemnity, and barely concealed hostility. The chairman, a veteran senator from the opposing party, gavelled the room to order. This committee will come to order. We are here today to take testimony from Major General Emily Thorne, United States Army, regarding the events surrounding the terrorist plot in Berlin, Germany, the conspiracy involving former Vice President Clayton Hayes and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Thomas Armitage, and the operations of the clandestine unit known unofficially as Ghost 9. General Thorne, you are reminded that your testimony is under oath. I understand, Mr. Chairman. Let the record show the witness has been sworn. General, you may begin your opening statement. I adjusted the microphone, my voice clear and unwavering, amplified through the chamber and broadcast live to the nation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ranking member, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Emily Thorne. For the past 10 years, in addition to my public duties, I have had the honor to command a sensitive, compartmented Special Activities Unit within the Joint Special Operations Command, charged with countering high-level internal threats and extraterritorial WMD proliferation. I spoke for 20 minutes. I laid out the facts, stripped of emotion, clinical as an autopsy report, the discovery of my parents' murder, the long investigation into Richard Morrison and Mariah Ventures, the link to Armitage, the Rhein gold threat, the trap in Berlin, the confrontation with Hayes. I presented the evidence not as a victim, nor as an avenger, but as a soldier reporting on a successful, if costly, counterintelligence operation. I named the dead, the SEALs wounded in the Berlin warehouse, the civilians caught in the crossfire. I did not name Jack, referring to him only as a courageous naval officer whose integrity and actions were instrumental. I did not name Patricia. When I finished, the silence was profound, broken only by the frantic scribbling of notes and the whir of cameras. The chairman cleared his throat. General Thorne, your account is extraordinary. The American people owe you and your team a debt of gratitude for preventing an atrocity. However, this committee has grave concerns about the scope, secrecy, and at times the extra-legal nature of your unit's activities. You operated for a decade with virtually no congressional oversight. You orchestrated the entrapment and death of a vice president of the United States. You ask for our trust after operating in the dark for so long. Why should we grant it? I met his gaze squarely. Mr. Chairman, I did not ask for this duty. It was thrust upon me by the murder of my parents, which your oversight committees, the FBI, and the Justice Department all failed to solve. I discovered a cancer within our own defense and intelligence apparatus, a cancer protected by the very laws and oversight protocols designed to provide transparency. To excise it required a scalpel, not a committee hearing. The darkness was not of my choosing. It was the environment in which the malignancy grew. My unit was the immune response. As for the death of Clayton Hayes, the record shows he was killed resisting arrest by FBI agents after explicitly ordering my assassination. The operation was authorized by the president and is supported by overwhelming evidence of his treason. I did not judge him. I provided the evidence. The system, once uncorrupted, worked. A senator from the other side, a firebrand known for his theatrical hearings, leaned into his mic. "General, isn't it true that you harbor a deep personal vendetta? That this entire operation was less about national security and more about a decades-old grudge? You used the immense, unchecked power of a secret unit to settle a family score, dragging the country to the brink of a constitutional crisis in the process." The room held its breath. This was the attack I'd expected. I didn't blink. "Senator, my personal history provided the motivation to begin looking. It did not fabricate the evidence. The financial records, the weapon sales, the murder of my parents, the plot to release Rheingold in Berlin. These are facts, verified by a dozen independent agencies since the network was broken. Clayton Hayes and Thomas Armitage betrayed their oaths for money and power. My grudge, as you call it, is the same as any citizen's, a demand for justice and a belief that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. If I wanted vengeance, Senator, they would have simply disappeared. They are in custody with all the rights they denied to others. That is the difference between what they did and what I did." The senator scowled but sat back, outmaneuvered. The questioning went on for hours, a brutal marathon of detail, suspicion, and political point scoring. I was a rock. I didn't get angry. I didn't get defensive. I stated facts. I cited law. I referenced presidential findings. I was the perfect soldier, the impeccable officer, and my very perfection was a devastating weapon against the bureaucratic and political forces arrayed against me. As the hearing wound down, the ranking member, a wise old lion of the Senate, spoke. "General Thorne, putting aside the politics, the nation has seen something rare today. A person of immense capability who chose to serve in the shadows at great personal cost, to protect the very idea of this country from those who would sell it out from within. My final question is this. What do you say to the young people watching, especially the young women, who see in you someone who was underestimated, dismissed, and yet prevailed through sheer will and competence?" I paused, letting the silence build. I looked past the cameras, as if speaking directly to that audience. "I would say that the most potent weapon you possess is the disbelief of your opponents. Let them think you're just a secretary. Let them think you're only following orders. Let them think you're motivated by something small. Do your duty. Master your craft. Be relentless. And when the moment comes, and the people who laughed need you to be the shield they didn't know they had, you won't have to say a word. Your actions will speak for you, and they will ring in the silence left by their scorn." The hearing room was utterly quiet for a long moment. Then, from the public gallery, came a single, sharp sound. A clap, then another, and another. It wasn't a roaring ovation. That was against the rules. But a steady, respectful, defiant percussion of hands. The senators looked around, some annoyed, some thoughtful. The cameras panned to show citizens, veterans, young cadets, their faces alight with a fierce pride. The chairman, with a faint, resigned sigh, banged his gavel. "This hearing is adjourned." As I stood, leaning on my cane, a wall of aides and officers formed around me, but through a gap in the crowd I saw her, Patricia Morrison, sitting in the back of the gallery. She wasn't clapping. She was just staring, her face a complex map of shame, awe, and a terrible, dawning understanding. Our eyes met for a second. I gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. She looked away, and when I glanced back, her seat was empty. Location: a secure facility, undisclosed location. 3 days later, the room was a comfortable, soundproof conference room, not an interrogation cell. Thomas Armitage sat on one side of a table, his lawyer, a sleek, expensive-looking man, beside him. I sat on the other side, alone. Chen and a legal advisor were behind the one-way mirror. "General Thorne," Armitage said, his voice a dry rustle. "To what do I owe the honor?" "I came to give you a report, Mr. Armitage, since you're no longer in a position to receive them through official channels." A flicker of annoyance. "My lawyer advises me to say nothing." "I'm not here to ask questions. I'm here to tell you outcomes. The Omega Fund is frozen. The Olympus symbol is being traced. Your personnel, Atlas, Vulcan, Janus, we're picking them up. In London, Singapore, Dubai. The network you and Hayes' built is collapsing. The system within the system is being dismantled, brick by brick. He remained impassive, but a tiny muscle twitched in his jaw, a temporary setback. The idea remains. The need remains. Men like Hayes are replaceable. The work continues. Does it? I leaned forward slightly. Your father's puzzle box. The lock is of your own making. You built a cage of money and secrets, Thomas, and you're in it. Hayes is dead. Richard Morrison is a broken man in protective custody, singing about you to save his own skin. You have no friends left. Olympus has already cut the line. The last payment to the dead drop? It didn't go through. The account was closed. You're a burned asset. For the first time, a crack appeared in the ice, a faint sheen of sweat on his brow. He'd been banking on his masters, extracting him. You're bluffing. I slid a single sheet of paper across the table. It was NSA intercept, time-stamped 48 hours after his arrest. A coded message from a number linked to the Zurich dead drop. The decryption was simple. Asset compromised. Burn protocol initiated. Olympus is dark. Armitage stared at it. His breath hitched. The lawyer put a hand on his arm, but he shook it off. The supreme bureaucrat, the master manipulator, saw the final, irrevocable audit. He had been balanced out of the ledger. Why are you here? He whispered, the arrogance gone, leaving only a hollow core. Because I wanted you to know, I said, standing up, taking my cane. I wanted you to see the peace you never saw coming. The one you and your patron dismissed as a grieving girl, a lowly secretary, a woman. You looked at the board and saw all the powerful pieces. You never saw the knight in the shadows. Checkmate, Mr. Armitage. Enjoy the cage. I turned and walked out. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The image of his crumbling face, the final, total victory was already mine. Location, the Pentagon. 1 week later. My new office was spacious, with a view of the Potomac. It bore the plaques and flags of a major general, but also the sleek, anonymous terminals of my other job. The director of the newly formed, congressionally sanctioned, yet still deeply covert, Strategic Threat Integration and Neutralization Directorate, STIND. Ghost 9 had a home, a budget, and a very long leash. Jack, now permanently assigned as my deputy operations chief, entered holding a file. The last of the Mariah shell companies have been dissolved, assets seized. The German government has formally tried and sentenced Faisal Kader to life. Volkov is facing extradition to the U.S. after the Germans are done with him. The public story has settled. You're a hero. Hayes and Armitage are traitors and the system worked. And Richard, Jack's face tightened. Plea deal. Full cooperation. Life in ADX Florence, no parole. He'll die in a supermax. My mother, she's filed for divorce. She's selling everything, moving to a small town in Vermont. She says she wants to learn how to garden. He tried to sound neutral, but the pain was there. It's a better ending than they deserved, Jack. I know. He placed the file on my desk. New personnel requests and a personal delivery. He nodded towards the door. I looked up. Patricia Morrison stood there, hesitant. She was dressed simply, no jewelry, her hair plain. She carried a small, gift-wrapped box. I'll give you a minute, Jack said and left, closing the door. Patricia approached my desk, placing the box on it. I'm leaving tomorrow. I didn't come for forgiveness. I know that's not on offer. I came to return something. She gestured to the box. It was your mother's. A birthday present for your father. The last one. She'd hidden it in my house for safekeeping, she said, before their trip. I found it when I was packing. I kept it, out of spite maybe, or grief. I don't know anymore. I carefully unwrapped the box. Inside, on velvet, was a classic silver chess piece. A knight. It was elegant, sturdy. The horse's head turned as if looking into the distance. Engraved on the base were the words, for James, the knight moves first. Love, Clara. My throat tightened. I picked it up. It was cool, solid real. A tangible piece of the love and the mind that had shaped me. Thank you, I said, my voice thick. Patricia nodded, her own eyes bright. You were right, Emily. The secretary was the best disguise. I looked down on the most powerful person I've ever known. My shame is my own, but I am in awe of you. Goodbye. She turned and left. I sat holding the knight, feeling its weight in my palm, a symbol of the parent I lost, the parent who taught me, and the weapon I had become. My secure terminal chimed with an urgent, Omega-level priority tag. I placed the knight carefully on my desk, where it would be the first thing I saw every morning, and turned to the screen. It was a live feed from a deep space monitoring array. The image was grainy but clear enough. It showed a schematic of the Mars colonial territory, specifically the disputed Valles Marinera sector. Overlaid were heat signatures, movement patterns, and comms intercepts in a code the system flagged as Prometheus variant. The text scrolled, stinned eyes only. Intercept confirmed. Prometheus network activity detected on MCT soil. Sector 7. Pattern matches. Piari incident. Berlin parameters. Possible WMD proliferation or high-yield sabotage. Colonial authority. Unaware. / compromised. Directive. Stand by for Planetary Security Council briefing. Deployment of stinned element Ghost to MCT is imminent. Prepare for orbital insertion. Message ends. I stared at the screen. Olympus wasn't on Earth. It was looking down from the heavens. The game board had just expanded to a solar system. The lock was of their own making, and the night was already moving. I keyed my comms. Chen Jack, my office. Now, we have a new mission. Pack for a long trip. It seems the ashes we scattered have blown to Mars. I leaned back, my fingers resting on the cool silver of the night. The ghost had a name, a title, and an office, but the war was the same, and the peace they still underestimated was already on the move.